Old Navy's Saturday Steal is back with the season's biggest one-day deal. 50% off all jeans, plus kids' tees and girls' tanks and leggings for just $3. One day only this Saturday at Old Navy and OldNavy.com. Valid 8/5, excludes clearance jeans. $3 deal, select styles only.
How many teams will double up on tight ends early tonight? How will Jake Rickroad use his FFPC experience to his advantage? And who will be left standing after 28 rounds of drafting carnage tonight? Follow along with the live draft board tonight and listen to our analysis as we call the action from the 2017 Pros vs. Joes I Am the Danger Division number 5 to see who will win a 2018 FFPC main event team. We've got a great show for you. Dave Gerzak is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour starts now.
Thinking of a master plan. Cause ain't nothing but sweat inside my hands. So I dig into my pocket, all my money spent. So I get deeper, but still coming up for lint. So I start my mission, leave my residence. Thinking how could I get some dead presidents? I need money. I used to be a stick-up kid, so I think of all the devious things I did. 1, 2, 3, 4. I used to roll up, this is a hole up. Ain't nothing funny, stop smiling. You still don't nothing move but the money. But now I learn that.
Broadcast live and heard around the world. You are now listening to the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. It's the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for football analysis from the best fantasy players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak.
I don't like to dream about getting paid, so I dig into the books of the rhymes that I made. Soon as the test to see if I got pulled.
Thank you, Rob. Greetings and salutations, all you Balkaholics and Gerzakinetics. Welcome to the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com. I'm your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman, and my co-host is indeed the patron saint of fantasy football, the Dizzle, Dave Gerzak. Tonight we have the 5th of 6 special episodes for you. It's the Pros vs. Joes I Am the Danger Division number 5 draft tonight, and we will be covering it for 2 hours. Follow the live draft board at youtube.com/high-stakes-fantasy-football. Shout out to the chat room right now. If you are listening to blogtalkradio.com/HSFF-hour. Post your questions you might have in there. Connect with us on Twitter at HSFF-hour, at Eric Balkman, or at David Gerzak this evening. You can, of course, post on our Facebook page at facebook.com/HSFF-hour. If you want to chime in and talk with us, give us a call. 347-426-3682. That's 347-GAME-OVER. You can also email the show at the inbox, highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. If you have any questions for us, now is the time to send them. Our producer and mutual friend, Rob, our audio engineer, Bryce, will do their best to get to all the chat room questions, all the tweets, all the emails throughout the 2-hour broadcast we have tonight. As a reminder, if you go to myffpc.com, you will find a bevy of different formats that you can play in. With the FFPC, the Football Guys Players Championship, $350 entry fee, a $2 million prize pool. The FFPC main event, of course, a $1.7 million prize pool there. We have best ball action there, classics, as well as draft experts double-ups with 100% payout. Dynasty drafts, everybody loves a good dynasty. They are going throughout the summer at myffpc.com. Startups every single weekend. So definitely a lot of action there. Definitely check that out. I encourage you to check that website out, of course, after the broadcast. Listen to the broadcast first, see what happens. We have another terrific lineup tonight. It's the number 5 division of Pros vs. Joes. I Am the Danger. 6 Pros, 6 Joes. We're going to tell you who's all playing tonight, who's drafting, right after this. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network. Welcome back to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Eric Balkman, Dave the Dizzle Gerzak, broadcasting the show live for you here. It is Pros vs. Joes number 5. If you want to know what is going on, we have 6 of these every single year. We have 6 Pros, 6 Joes in each league. So you're looking at 72 drafters. And out of those 72, 6 of them will win 2018 FFPC main event teams. That is a $1,750 value. And it only pays out for first place. You're going to see a lot of interesting things, a lot of interesting strategy tonight. You're going to see one of the things we always pay attention to, given that this is a tight end premium format in the FFPC, you always like to see how not only the FFPC Joes, who are normally used to drafting in this format, how they select tight ends, but the pros, who are not normally handling this format, 28 rounds, with the tight end premium scoring, as well as a dual flex. You can start. You have to start a quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 receivers, a tight end, and a kicker and a defense, and then 2 flexes. You could start 4 running backs, 4 receivers, 3 tight ends. It doesn't matter. So we always like to see what happens in these drafts with the tight ends, especially when teams on the ends, 1, 2, 3, or 10, 11, 12, if they load up on 2 tight ends early. We saw that happen last night with Matt Kelly from PlayerProfiler.com and Sigmund Bloom from FootballGuys.com, both selecting 2 tight ends within their first 3 picks. Sigmund Bloom starting off the draft at the 112 and the 201 with Rob Gronkowski and Travis Kelce. Will we see that again tonight? Remains to be seen. So let's tell you who is participating tonight in the action. The draft order is as follows. Leading things off tonight is RotoViz.com's Jake Rickroad, of course, at Clutch Fantasy on Twitter. You actually have heard him on this program several times, and he has accumulated quite a following given his awesome analysis at RotoViz.com. Don Lacknett, FFPC Joe, is the number 2 drafter tonight. Matt Schauf from DraftSharks.com, a guy who has co-hosted this program before. He is drafting out of the 3 hole. Joseph Lally is out of the 4 spot tonight, another FFPC Joe. Her Fantasy Football's Brandon Marianne Lee is drafting 5th tonight. Dennis Young, FFPC Joe, in the 6th spot. From DraftTV.com, we have Shane Hallam, of course, a longtime FFPC Dynasty player. He'll be flexing his redraft muscle tonight, drafting out of the 7th spot. Chef Paul Schmidt, a longtime player of the FFPC. He is a Joe drafting out of the 8th spot. Right behind him from DynastyFootballFactory.com is Michael Goins. He is drafting 9th. Chris Carlson, of course, a guy who has been on this program before, as well as the High Stakes Lowdown on RotoViz.com. Very talented drafter, picking 10th tonight. And Rumford Johnny from DraftDayConsultants.com, the final pro this evening, picking out of the 11th spot. And rounding things up tonight is, of course, Team 12, a co-owned team of Mark Harrelson and Nelson Verbit. Nelson Verbit, another former guest of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour as well. If you are curious, if this is the first time you have ever listened to the program, we go live every single week. Doesn't matter if it's football season or not. Every Friday, 10/9 Central, right on blogtalkradio.com/HSFF Hour. You can always catch the replay of our show on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network Saturdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. We are on terrestrial radio stations and syndication all over North America, United States, Canada, and, of course, on-demand streaming always available for this show. iTunes, YouTube, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, TuneIn Radio, Spreaker, Overcast, and much more. I also want to give a shout-out to a drafter who is drafting tomorrow night in our final Pros vs. Joes draft. That is Darren Armani from FantasyMojo.com. Puts in a ton of work in the offseason, getting all these pros and Joes together each year. We certainly appreciate all the hard work he puts in. A lot of people have asked, because people have been tweeting about the Pros vs. Joes drafts on Twitter. This will be our 5th one that we've done tonight. They always say, how can I be a Joe next year? I want to play in this. Put me in. How do I get in? Here's how you get in. All you need to do is either buy your FFPC main event team by the May 31st early bird deadline, or just simply put a deposit down on it and then pay for the rest later. And you are entered into the drawing of the Joes for the FFPC players. And we select 36 of them. And hopefully you're one of the 36 and you'll get to compete for free. There's no extra fee that you have to pay or anything like that. You automatically get into this, and you can draft and try to win your way into the 2018 FFPC main event. The 2017 FFPC main event, if you haven't been paying attention, it's roughly less than a month and a half away, maybe 6 weeks away, right around there. I mean, it's creeping up. It's crazy that this is, we're so close to the start of the NFL season. I don't think a lot of people realize it. Our live events are actually being held this year in Las Vegas, Nevada. We are on the Strip this year at Planet Hollywood. It is going to be a very exciting time to have all of our live events out there. We have auction leagues, draft experts leagues, plenty of action out there. Super Bracket, of course, going on live, Big Payback, High Society, Varsity, Off the Grid, all the cool formats that you can sign up for at myffpc.com. Still openings in I will say the high stakes leagues that we're seeing, like I think the High Society is already filled. We have a few spots left in Big Payback, and of course the Super Bracket and the Victory Points leagues are filling up very fast as well. So you might think you can wait until the bitter end and jump in last minute. Usually doesn't work that way. So if you are interested in playing, sign up for that right now. As an added bonus this year, if you want to play with us live, you definitely can. And we are going to make it worth your while with a great discount code. And I shouldn't even say we're doing this. Planet Hollywood's doing this. They've been very welcoming as our new home of our live events in Las Vegas. The FFPC players are being welcomed by PH. Exclusive reduced room rates for FFPC players. Normally, if you are going to be staying out there, you are going to be paying $124 to $190 Tuesday through Thursday, which, of course, is when our live events kick off. With the group discount code, $79 a night. With the discount code on Friday and Saturday, you're actually going to be saving a lot of money, too. Normally, about $250, $260 a night that you'd be paying at Planet Hollywood. You are only paying $179 with the FFPC discount code, which is pretty awesome that you can get that rate on the Strip. If you're wondering how to do this, we have Greg Sidoris, our live event group host, that is going to be able to help you with any of your questions, help you get registered, help you get booked, help you, really take the stress out of your, planning the Vegas trip so you can just focus on having a great time out in Sin City and making some money along the way with some awesome drafts. Don't worry about the other stuff. Let Greg figure that out. He wants to figure that out. Just worry about drafting and buying, if you're in an auction, the best possible teams that you can. How to contact Greg? 216-299-5390. He can also be reached at 855-VIP-HOST. He will have the code there that you can use. You can also email him if you want to do that. LVCH777@AOL.com. That's L like Las, V like Vegas, C like Casino, H like Host, 777@AOL.com. It has been quite a while since we started. I mean, it feels like we just started covering these Pros vs. Joe's drafts. We really haven't. This is draft number 5 tonight. We only have one more after this. And the fact that it's almost already done, it seems kind of crazy. We've seen a lot of interesting stuff so far. I think last night's draft was incredibly entertaining, given that, you had a very entertaining guy drafting in the 10 spot last night, Matt Kelly from Player Profiler, doubling up on tight ends and getting Jimmy Graham and Tyler Eifert in the 3rd and 4th round. And then you have Sigmund Bloom taking Gronk and Kelsey with the 1-2 picks last night. It's been a fun ride thus far, and I know, and I apologize for anybody who is looking for the picks. The picks will be coming shortly. We are just experiencing some technical difficulties with the draft room. We'll get those. We're getting it fixed. They're working on it right now, and we'll have some live drafting action for you tonight. But the thing I do want to point out is for anybody who wants to see the previous draft boards, where they can see the full draft, because we probably only cover, I would say, up to about round, and it depends how fast these guys draft. I mean, sometimes we cover 15 rounds, sometimes 20, sometimes 25. It all depends. Usually we get through about 20 rounds, and then if you want to see the final 8 rounds, you have to go to either the FFPC Facebook page, the FFPC Twitter page, facebook.com/FFPC, at FFPC on Twitter, the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour Facebook page, facebook.com/High Stakes Fantasy Football, or at HSFF Hour on Twitter. The draft boards will be there. If you like to go to the FFPC message boards, they always get posted there as well. So there is plenty of ways to check out all the previous Pros vs. Joe's drafts that we've won. And actually, you could probably go back and look even further on the message boards at the FFPC and see previous years. FantasyMojo.com has all of them archived going all the way back to 2009, which is pretty crazy that we've been doing this this long. You can actually check out all the final results from all the previous years there. With that, we are going to take a little bit of a break here, and when we come back, we'll get some live draft action going. All of this and more on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. I'm Eric Balkman. You can follow me on Twitter at Eric Balkman. You can follow my co-host, The Dizzle, on Twitter at David Gerzak. This is the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour right here on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network. You would think that Dave would have the at Dizzle Twitter handle, but he doesn't. Or patron saint of FF. I think that would be a cool one to have as well. Those might already be taken, but Dave is on Twitter at David Gerzak. We are broadcasting the Pros versus Joes number 5 draft tonight. This is the I Am the Danger draft. Of course, all of the drafts this year were aptly named by Darren Armani, who is a big Breaking Bad fan, named all after Breaking Bad inferences or references, I guess as it were. We have a packed chat room here at our website, blogtalkradio.com/HSFF. We have a good group at YouTube.com/High Stakes Fantasy Football, where you can watch the video feed tonight. We're going to have the streaming draft board up there as well. And I do apologize for anybody who is looking for the picks to be coming in. We're in the middle of fixing it right now. We had some technical difficulties. We will get this underway shortly. I would invite anybody who has not taken the opportunity to go ahead and check out FantasyMojo.com and check out not only the great Pros versus Joes history there, where you can see every player that's ever participated, Pros and Joes. You can see them ranked as well, as Darren Armani put together a pretty good system of ranking all the players, all the Pros and Joes who have participated over the years. And actually, we're going to see one of those players draft tomorrow night in the Pros vs. Joes finale, the Better Call Saul draft, number 6. That's Tim McCullough. And we bring his name up on the show a lot because Tim did something that was actually really pretty incredible. Tim, in his first year in this contest, and I believe, I can't remember, we've talked to him about this over the years after it happened, but he told us that I think what he said was he didn't realize that this was a best ball format. This is a set it and forget it, an FFPC draft experts format where you don't get to make pickups during the season. There's no fab, there's no waivers. Whatever you draft, you end up having on your team all season long. Well, in a tight end premium format where you can start up to 3 tight ends a week, the tight ends tend to get gobbled up pretty quickly. And Tim waited, and he waited, and he waited, and finally he drafted Antonio Gates. And I want to say it was like round 8 or 9. He took his first tight end. Okay, that's kind of a long time to wait in this format, but whatever. He'll make it work. He'll fill in the cracks later. He'll get some decent depth at tight end. It did not necessarily work out that way, as he did not take another tight end for the rest of the entire draft. So he waits 8 rounds to take. And again, you can go to FantasyMojo.com. Darren Armani has all the previous draft results up there. But you have Tim McCullough, going 20 rounds without taking a second tight end, which is unheard of. So everybody, kind of made fun of him after the draft, saying, there is no chance. He's got no chance. He's not going to win the league this year. You can't just go into a draft like this and not have more than 1 tight end. Even people, I think, would have said the same thing if you would have only had 2 tight ends. I think 3 is kind of the absolute minimum in this format, and he just went in with 1. And, the next day, of course, Tim, at the time, and I can't remember exactly if he's been on this time slot the entire time as this has been, 3 years since it's happened. But you could always hear him on the Roto Experts in the Morning show. And we had several guys from the Roto Experts show in the Pros vs. Joes drafts previously. Adam Ronis had participated. Corey Parson had participated. And these guys, Jake Seeley, of course, another Roto expert who was, these guys all had a lot of internal trash talking. And so obviously the next day, I think it was Corey Parson said, Tim, what in the hell were you thinking drafting one tight end? And Tim actually came on our show, the High Stakes Fantasy Footballer, and said, like, look, I screwed up. I don't have a chance. I thought this was a classic where I could pick guys up during the season. The tight ends were getting scooped up. I was just grabbing value elsewhere. And, everybody was kind of nice about it. And like, look, he didn't know what was going on. It's fine. It happens. The other thing that we don't give these pros enough credit for, think about all the industry leagues that they have to participate in and stuff for their show and content. And if you're a pro trying to put one of these drafts together on the air, you're trying to get, other pros to participate, other industry guys. So if everybody is pulling a different industry guy, all of a sudden you're doing 12 industry drafts with 12 different scoring setups, 12 different lineup systems, 12 different waiver systems. It's insane. So it's tough to keep track of. And it's even worse when these pros have to come on in the PVJ drafts and draft against 6 FFPC Joes. Some of these guys who are doing dozens of drafts who have done a ton of these that know not only what the scoring system is, the lineup system is, how many flex spots you get, what the correct strategy is to play, knowing how to make the draft come to you. These guys know the ins and outs of everything. So, it's not a big deal. It happened with Tim McCullough. So, long story short, or long story long in this case, Tim McCullough has a pretty good year. Ends up keeping his team together. Quarterbacks playing well. Running backs are piling up the points. Receivers are piling up the points. Kickers and defense are doing great every single week. The only position that he had to hold his breath each and every week was tight end. And remember, there's bye weeks too, so he's for sure taking a 0 on Antonio Gates' bye week. For sure. He's got nobody else. It's not like Antonio Gates is going to be traded to another team in the NFL, play that week, and then traded back to the Chargers. It doesn't work like that. I suppose he could get traded to that new team if they've already had their bye and he would be covered. It didn't work that way. And the other problem is Antonio Gates, not the greatest guy for staying out of the trainer's room. I mean, a guy who has dealt with a lot of foot issues throughout his career. And this is, we're not talking about like when he was a rookie. I mean, he's been in the league forever. And you're talking about a guy who was, 2-3 years ago already having these foot issues. So you have Antonio Gates as your only tight end. And lo and behold, not only did Tim McCullough win his 12-team league and win an entry into the FFPC main event, he won the entire competition, beat out 71 other teams. He beat out 36 FFPC Joes, 35 industry pros, and he took the whole thing down. So congrats to him. This was insane. That he was able to win the whole thing. And I was in disbelief, following it throughout the season. When you sign up for the FFPC Insider newsletter at myffpc.com, we like to update all of our leagues throughout the year, how things are going, who's winning them, who's looking good, who needs some work to do. And we like to update the Pros versus Joes draft as well. The fact that Tim McCullough was ahead at all was crazy to me. And everybody just kept waiting for it to fall apart. Oh, this is a good story. It'll never last. We're saying this in week 4, week 5, whatever it was. Week 8, week 9. Hey, maybe he can do it. Ha, ha, ha. Still kind of joking around, just waiting for the wheels to fall off, but kind of being a little bit nervous at this point. Like, maybe there's something to this. Maybe Tim McCullough could take this down. And then we get into week 12 and 13, and now all of a sudden there's only 4 or 5 teams in contention because this is an overall points championship. So you have teams that are falling off pace. And these guys, it's not like they're tanking or anything or not setting their lineup. This is a best ball format, so you don't have to worry about it. But eventually it becomes where Tim McCullough is fighting off less and less competition every single week. And then you're looking at Tim McCullough going into week 16 as the leader. I think he was the leader. I could be wrong. He was either in first or second. It was a pretty tight race. And then, Antonio Gates stays healthy for the majority of the season. I'd have to check to see if I'd have to check and see how this played out and to see who was winning throughout the year. But I know Tim was in it right at the end, and I don't know how many games Gates missed, what have you. But it was insane. And then, of course, Tim McCullough ends up winning the whole thing, so congrats to him. And then for an encore, out of the following year, Tim did not draft one tight end. He drafted several. People draft 5 or 6 tight ends sometimes in this format. And so Tim drafts several tight ends the following year, finishes somewhere in the teens, which is still pretty crazy out of 72, FFPC Joes and industry pros. Still pretty awesome. So he ends up, in the teens. And then the following year, which was last year, 2016, Tim ended up winning his league once again. I think he took 4th place overall in the contest, and he will be drafting in the final draft tomorrow, the Pros vs. Joes number 6 Better Call Saul League. So everybody, if you're not paying attention to who he's picking, you should be, because his projections are on, he's building his teams the right way, and he's getting the right number of players at every position. Now you could make the case that, well, Balky, he didn't win last year. No, he didn't, but 4th is still pretty darn good. And I will take, 3 finishes in the top 20, including 2 top 5 finishes, any day, And the fact that he won 2 FFPC main event entries, that was great as well. Just a fantastic run for Tim McCullough. And I know Dave would say I give him too much props, or too many props on this show. But when you have a performance like that, it's really insane. So congrats to him. And if I buried the lead, I do believe if you look at Darren Armani at his overall leaders, I believe McCullough is number 1, and he should be on that list. I mean, he should be. I don't think anybody else has boasted, the track record that he has. Fantasy Football Masterminds, Mike Nazarek has done very well in this competition. He's gotten some bad luck, almost won the whole thing. He's got 2 third-place overall finishes in this contest, so he's certainly up there as well. Much props to him. And he's actually going to be drafting tomorrow as well. You've heard him on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour before, as he's come on with some great knowledge. He's going to do that again this year. So a lot of great stuff coming up around the corner. And a lot of great stuff coming up for us after this break. We're going to take some calls right after this. You're listening to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Eric Balkman right here on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network. The HSFF Hour is live here for you, covering the Pros vs. Joes I Am the Danger draft number 5. I am Eric Balkman, your slightly above average host, or below average. I don't know. I think it varies from week to week. We have some technical difficulties with the draft board that we are working on fixing. We'll get those going for you right away. In the meantime, you're probably sick of hearing me talk. Why don't we go to the airwaves and the 610 and find out what's going on there? Caller, who is this? You're on the air with Balky.
Hey, Balky, it's Darren Armani. How you doing?
Hey, Darren Armani. I don't know if you'd be the quote-unquote founder of this, but you might as well be, because you're the guy who puts this together every single year from FantasyMojo.com. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing pretty good. I figured I'd give you a call since you got a little time here at the beginning. I'm not sure what I kind of jumped in late, and I saw that the board was held up. So I figured now's a better time for me to call instead of tomorrow night when I'll be drafting. I'll probably be pretty distracted. So, but I heard you. What's that? Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'll just okay. Well, one of the things I want to talk to you about, because people always say, like, oh, Armani, he not people, but some people, he just waits to the end to see where everybody goes so he knows who to pick. The reason you actually draft in the final one is in case there is anybody who is a no-show, you can jump in at any time, which I don't think you've ever had to do before. And hopefully you won't have to this year. But given the fact that you have seen 4 of these drafts so far, what has stood out to you as you're building your strategy for tomorrow night?
I think the last couple drafts have been pretty tight. The first ones, they were kind of loose. There were some strange things going on in some of them. Like the Lat Murray pick, I think, was the one draft he went in the 8th or 9th round. But everybody has their own strategy. That they seem to come in with a plan. They've got enough time to, I give them enough kind of background for some of the newer pros. So everybody comes in ready to go, and it's always a good time. They plan and they execute it.
Hey, what do you make of, I talked about it a little bit at the top of the show about Gronk and Kelsey going to Sigmund Bloom at the 112 and 201 last night, and then player profiler Matt Kelly, playerprofiler.com's Matt Kelly taking Eifert and Jimmy Graham in the rounds 3 and 4, or 4 and 3, I guess. When you see something like that, how are you reacting if you are somebody like Steve Lowinger and FFPC Joe, who's drafting in the 1 spot last night? How do you react to something like that when you know that you might not have a chance to get an elite tight end, and if you let the tight ends go, you might be looking at some scraps when it comes back to you again?
Yeah, well, I think those guys were sharp enough that that they've already kind of worked through the scenarios in their head of what may or may not come back to them. And as far as Sigmund Bloom goes, he's another guy who's actually won the competition twice. So he's right up there. In fact, that leaderboard that you're referring to, it's not so much of an all-time ranking so much as it is just overall wins, total division wins, and then league finishes. It's kind of just a cross-reference chart. But the guys at the top are the ones who have had the most overall success in the competitions. But Tim's won his league 2 out of 3 times. So I guess if you had to say somebody who's probably the most successful, it would be him. He's certainly the most efficient at doing this. But Sigmund, last year he won his league and he drafted down at the 2 spot last year. So this year he's at the other end of the draft, and he just he had a plan of going double tight end, and he worked it. So the guys over at the other end of the board just have to kind of react to that. And like I said, I'm sure they have the scenarios, the game plan, and they just a lot of it's just taking what's given to you. And then at least the first couple rounds, and then guys really seem to target certain players. There was the one guy in the 5-hole, Edgar Macias, I think it was, who started taking all the elite running back backups like early on, like McFadden and Jonathan Williams and James Conner. So he had his strategy too. So everybody kind of knows, I think, what they want to do, and you just kind of got to shift on the fly if something kind of unexpected happens to you. So,
Darren Armani is joining us. Go ahead, Darren. Finish your thought there.
I was just going to say, you also referred to, I always put myself in the last draft. There's no sort of, I'm not being devious or anything. I just put myself at the end in case there's a no-show or something unexpected happens, and I can jump in and get somebody. Because as much success as Tim McCullough has had in winning 2 out of 3 years, I'm actually 0 for 9 over the course of the history in the competition, just because, it's not so much for me trying to, get an edge on anyone. It's really trying to make it a better competition for everyone else, and make it a good experience for everyone.
Darren, what's something? Of course, Darren Armani from FantasyMojo.com joining us. The genius, the brains, the muscle behind the Pros versus Joes every single year. As we've done this is the 9th year that we've been doing Pros versus Joes. As you have seen everything evolve over these 9 years, have you seen different strategies, sort of present themselves in these drafts? Like we saw zero RB be so heavily prevalent in classic leagues last year. I don't really remember it being so prevalent in Pros versus Joes, but the stuff that you've seen over the years, how has your strategy shifted from year to year, and how you're trying to, take pieces of information that you learn from each year and try to apply that for the following year to try and, get to the top of the heap of this 72-person competition?
Yeah, well, since it's a winner-take-all league, the risk tolerance over the years has sort of increased, at least for me personally. So early on, you're taking more of a kind of a safe strategy, but of course that never works when it's a winner-take-all. So, in the later years, I'm trying to just go for the upside picks and, do what you need to do to take it all down. And one of the other famous Pros versus Joes drafters was Chris Banks back when he won it. I think it was 2013 or 14, and he won his league. I think he just drafted 4 running backs, and he hit on all of them, and he took like this real sort of all-in approach to certain positions, and he just rolled with it, and he happened to hit on that. So I think that's usually what happens is you have to have sort of a go for a strategy that's going to bring a lot of upside to your picks. And then you got to get lucky, too. You have to hit on late picks, too. So the 1 year you're talking about with Tim McCullough, he drafted Odell Beckham in the 15th round when he blew up. He had Eddie Royal had a big year, which I think he got in the last pick of the draft, and that was the year Matt Asiata went bananas. So it kind of helps when you have those late-round picks who sort of explode and kind of propel you to the top as well. So you got to put some dart throws in there that you think can overachieve and just, sort of have the perfect recipe to kind of bring it down by the time the end of the year comes about. And, of course, staying healthy over the course of the year is important, too, with any DE, not just pros versus Joes.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things that go into it. Staying healthy, getting your bye weeks lined up right. And a lot of people say, bye weeks don't matter. Well, they do in a DE because there isn't any changing of your roster. You can't just pick somebody up for a bye week. So I think that's really crucial as well. And Darren, for anybody who is not familiar, yourself included, you couldn't remember the exact year that Chris Banks won. You can go to your own website, fantasymojo.com, and check out what year it was that he won, as well as the entire archived history of the Pros vs. Joes competition.
Right. So now I'm looking at that right now. That was 2013 that he first. So, yeah, on that chart you can just go to fantasymojo.com. There's a link on the front page to the all-time leaderboard. And so it has every year, and you can sort the particular year by finish and see who the top players were for any given year. And then we've got total lifetime points, number of years played, and a lot of interesting names if you just kind of glance over the board to see the people that have participated over the years. So there were a lot of people in earlier on and a lot of newcomers, but basically anybody who's ever played is represented on this chart.
Darren Armani from FantasyMojo.com joining the program tonight. I'm Eric Balkman. Darren, you mentioned Edgar Macias' team, who was drafting FFPC Joe last night, drafting out of that 5 spot. What do you make of that strategy where you pounded 4 receivers and a tight end in the first 5 rounds, and then basically from, I think it was like rounds, 6 to 11, 6 to 12, something like that, it was all running backs. And, there's some certain upside ones, picks in there. Is this a strategy that you think could pay off for him this year, given that you only have to start 2 running backs in this competition, and the fact that he had so many of them there, the odds are high that out of those 6 or 7 running backs, you'd think 2 of them should be all right from week to week.
Yeah, I mean, I would think so, especially since like I said, he targeted the backups to the elite running backs. He's got Zeke's backup, Le'Veon Bell's backup, and he's got LaShawn McCoy's backup. My only concern would be he targeted these guys so early. I think he invested a lot of draft capital into those guys really early. I mean, McFadden, James Conner in the 10th round. And, I mean, he probably could have proved his chances and still gotten those guys if he would have spread them out a little bit more. But I got to respect the strategy. So he went for it, and he this is the type of team that could definitely win it all. You just don't know what's going to happen, depending on if there's injuries that happen, and then all of a sudden, he's sitting on these blue chip guys that could just really rack up the points.
And they don't even have to necessarily be blue chips. Although you would say that every single year there's always a team there's always a player or two, especially at the running back position, that comes out of nowhere to make a name for himself, to not only help his NFL team, but help fantasy teams win titles. We see it every single year, especially in the main event competition and the Football Guys Players Championship. We see guys come up in the weeks 14 through 16 to help people win titles. Jamal Charles a couple of years ago. Not that he came out of nowhere, but he was just a beast in those last 3 weeks. Tim Hightower stepped in for Mark Ingram. He did it. You go back to whatever it was, 2006, and you saw what Arlen Harris did for the Rams. I mean, it happens every single year, and in this competition, it rewards you if you draft strongly, and I think it makes some sense that if you can hit on those picks, you'll be in A-OK shape. We have the draft just around the corner here. We're going to take another quick break. Darren Armani, Eric Balkman, Dave Gerzak right here on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is live here for the Pros vs. Joes, FFPC Division number 5, I Am the Danger draft tonight. We have a ton of, not a ton, but we have 6 Pros and 6 Joes competing tonight. We're going to get underway here in just a few minutes. Darren, you're doing your homework tonight. You have basically from what all of you've seen so far in the Pros vs. Joes drafts, do you have an early favorite? Is there a team out of these first 4 drafts that you've seen that, after you look at it and you're looking at, okay, this guy, I don't think he's got much here. I don't think that this team is going to compete. This guy could be there to the end. Is there a dominant team who's a team that you've really been impressed by thus far?
Off the top of my head, it's kind of tough. I know in last night's draft, Jen Ryan's team stuck out as being a strong one, and Sigmund's as well looked pretty good. But it's like I said, I think the person who is likely to win it all may come from those earlier drafts because they were a little bit looser, in my opinion. Some of the teams. So when the draft is sort of out of balance like that, and like last night was so tight, I think it's going to be tough for one team to have so many overall points that they would bring it down because it's going to be balanced. But in the earlier drafts, if there's one person who keeps capitalizing on some of the value that gets left on the board because you got a couple other guys who are just, maybe not executing as well, then that's the type of team that could, really run away with it at the end of the year. So in this draft that I'm in tomorrow night, it's completely brutal. We've got 5 teams that have all won Pros versus Joes league titles in the past. So it's just it's going to be really hard, I think, to take it all out of that one. The Joes are ridiculous. You got Kimra, that's in there tomorrow. Who else do we got? We got Roger Gonzalez. Rich McClellan and Roger Gonzalez are going tomorrow. Bob McGilvray, Steve Rezis. I mean, these are Brad Kirkland, all guys that are very familiar with the format. So and you're right with the pro lineup tomorrow. It's going to be insane with Jared Smola, who of course won one of these leagues last year in the PVJ. We have Tim McCullough, who we talked about him, how talented he is. Mike Nazarek, Ray Summerlin drafting tomorrow. Of course, he won the 2016 Scott Fish Bowl. This is how he got in this year. Ray Summerlin from Roto World, so he's going to be talented. And then some guy named Darren Armani. I don't know. He's got a lot of experience. Is this the year for Armani, Darren? Somehow he just keeps getting invited back, despite the fact that he never wins the division. But pretty amazing. But he's like the underdog, and I'm sure people will be rooting for him. So, but you brought up Ray Summerlin. So that's one of the kind of the synergies we have with the Scott Fish Bowl that a lot of people are familiar with. So the person who wins the Scott Fish Bowl outright now gets an automatic bid into the Pros versus Joes at the FFPC. So that's something that we worked out with Scott Fish. So that's the nice thing that we do as well.
Yeah, that's very cool. Obviously, and there's a lot of overlap. I mean, there's a lot of pros who are in the Scott Fish Bowl who are also in the Pros vs. Joes competition. So it's a totally different format. As far as what you're looking at, there's no kickers and defenses in the SFB, and obviously you have to. I mean, that's a big part of the strategy in the Pros vs. Joes. Darren, how just curiously, when you're building your team in this, how many kickers and how many defenses do you usually like to have?
I just go with the standard 3 and 3. So that's the plan anyway. But you could always I could go with 2 if things are kind of going that way. Like I could see getting away with 2 defenses or 2 kickers if that's what ended up happening. I wouldn't be upset. But we'll see. That's kind of the plan. But so I'm picking in the 6th spot. I kind of know what I'm going to do out of that position. Unless something really bizarre happens, and you never know with these things, because as you see, people will just go and grab the players that they want and not really concern themselves with ADP. They're sort of individual thinkers in a lot of these.
Well, it's just interesting that you bring that up, that you are drafting from the 6th spot. We have to take another quick break here, Darren, but when we come back, I want to actually talk to you a little bit about what your plans are from the 6th spot. This is Eric Balkman, Darren Armani. Pause 10 seconds for station ID. Pros vs. Joes number 5. I am the danger. I am Eric Balkman, and he is Darren Armani, who you can follow on Twitter at Fantasy Mojo. You can check out the website, it's really the home of the Pros vs. Joes at FantasyMojo.com. All the archives on there. This is the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network. We're trying to get some live draft coverage for you. We are experiencing some technical difficulties with the draft board. I promise you have not missed any picks. When they happen, we will bring them to you, which should be around the corner. Now, Darren is actually going to be participating as a pro tomorrow night on the finale of the Pros vs. Joes, draft number 6. Darren will be drafting out of ironically, the 6th spot. Now, Darren, you said before the break, you kind of have a pretty good idea of what you want to do there. Share with the listeners tonight what you're thinking, what your strategy is going to be. Is this going to be a major surprise that you're going to be doing, or is that when we see this pick, are we going to see like, oh, okay, that makes some sense there?
It's probably not going to be anything shocking. You just got to kind of understand what that first pick in the first round, or your first round pick. It's take a look at historically what these players have, what the total points have been for those players. So I just try and play it safe, at least in the first couple rounds. Give me a guy with as many points as possible, and not get too crazy. I considered, well, you can maybe go tight end there, but when you look at it, there's just so much risk. The tight ends, there's a lot of variance. They're not really consistent from year to year. And Kelsey was a big scorer last year. Not that I would pick him there, but if you take a look historically over the past 5 years, he was the top scorer, but that was kind of a down year as far as tight ends go within the past 4 or 5 years. So he kind of floated to the top, but it wasn't historically a really high scoring year for tight ends. So that's just something, that people might not be aware of. So I would still probably go Gronk above him, but at the 6th spot, that's just too early for me to pass up on some of the more proven commodities, I think, in the first round there at the 6th spot.
Darren, we have roughly 90 seconds or so before our next break. I want to ask you, you kind of touched on this earlier, what other Pros vs. Joes drafters do. But what have you been doing in the past, knowing that only first place is going to get a prize in this competition? Second place doesn't get anything. Have you found yourself taking a lot of risk, trying to take upside guys, or do you believe that, listen, if I hit on my enough studs, my team's going to be in the thick of it right until the end? How have you historically built your team as far as risk taking goes?
I think I've tried to accumulate as many wide receivers as possible, because those are the guys who will typically have more of the, at least when you get into sort of the lower tiers of position players, those are the guys who are going to explode and really come out of nowhere. You don't see that quite as much as from running backs or, tight ends you do on occasion. But if you're playing sort of just, the wild card scenario, the big games are usually going to come from a tight end. So I try to grab more of those in the later rounds. But if you can hit on some of these tight ends, they're more difficult to scout, the tight ends. Like last year you had Cameron Brate and C.J. Fedorowicz were really huge scorers. That tight ends you could get.
Darren, I don't want to cut you off because I want to finish this conversation, but we do have to take another quick break. I do apologize. This is the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. More at Darren Armani right after this. I am Eric Balkman at Eric Balkman on Twitter. He is Darren Armani at Fantasy Mojo on Twitter. We are bringing you the Fantasy Football Players Championship Pros vs. Joes Division number 5 live draft tonight. Technical difficulties. We will get it underway shortly, but we have a lot of great stuff. A lot of great stuff coming out of the mouth of the godfather of the Pros vs. Joes competition tonight, Darren Armani, who has done such a great job putting this together every single year. Before the break, Darren, we were talking about tight ends, and as far as your risk-taking there goes, how what you've done in the past, but as you look to apply it this year for your the risky tight ends, maybe the upside tight ends that really could pay off dividends for the guys who are drafting them in the mid-rounds this year.
Yeah, there's definitely some tight ends out there that could overachieve or outscore their draft position. So I got a few of those guys in my back pocket as well, and even some really, really deep ones. Some guys that I've been picking up with some of the other DEs that I've been participating in. here in the preseason. So, and that's one of the things that the FFPC players have an advantage of. They've been cycling through these DEs over and over again in the preseason, and so it's kind of second nature. They know what's going to be available when. So in theory, they should have an advantage over the pros, but I think last year the pros outdid them. I did do an all-time division win count, and I think that the pros have just slightly edged the Joes. I think it was like 29-27 in terms of division victories. So we'll see how it shakes out this year. But over the course of the years, we've definitely – it's been a couple things. I think the pros have become more familiar with the format, so they're doing well. And we've also kind of upped the quality, per se, of the pros that participate in the event. So you're getting a lot sharper minds in this. So, it's become sort of an equal battle for both sides.
Yeah, I was actually curious on how that shook out as far as the division winners go, because obviously the Joes have dominated the overall competition here, but they have not always done so well as far as division titles. And the pros, obviously, you said, have a little bit of an advantage there. Were you at all surprised? I mean, what was more surprising? The fact that the Joes kept winning this every single year, the first 5 years or whatever it was that more surprising to you? Or was it more surprising that the pros have sort of taken it back and then they win, 2 in a row with Tim McCullough and Jake Seeley, both from Roto Experts, coming out on top? Which one was more surprising for you to see?
I think it's more surprising that the Joes were kind of beating them over the head, because we still had some really sharp pros in there, but they just they weren't pulling it off early on. And another thing that may play a factor in sort of the pros' success more recently is the fact that we're now pulling the Joes from a pool of FFPC players that may be more main event focused in that classic format. Not a lot of those guys are as familiar with the DEs, quite honestly. So you're getting a couple soft spots, and maybe that's accounting for what we saw when I referred to some of the drafts were looser the first few drafts last week. I think we had some guys in there who, weren't as schooled in the DE format as they may have liked to be. And early on, when we had the Joes, they were pretty much all we had a different way of selecting the Joes. But they were more familiar with the DE format. So there's a lot of factors which kind of play into it. So it's tough to put your finger on any one thing in particular. Yeah,
indeed, it is tough to put your finger on it. Dave Gerzak, the Dizzle, joining me tonight. Dave, do we have live draft picks going on right now? But first of all, say hi to Darren.
Hey, buddy, how you doing?
How you doing, Dave? How we making out?
I'm doing really well right now, for past 49 minutes, not quite as good, but doing great, and we are off and running.
We are off and running. Okay, why don't you go ahead and, Dave, you can... I
love your voice. You've been talking
listen, Darren's been doing most of the talking. Can you go ahead and just give everybody a refresh on who the lineup is tonight?
You bet. Out of the one spot, we have Jake Rickroad from rotoviz.com, one of our prior guests, great guy. Don Lacknett is a Joe out of the 2-hole. Matt Schaaf from DraftSharks.com is a pro out of the 3-hole. Joseph Lally? All right, sorry. I'm not so good at the pronunciation here.
Well, you know what? I'm no spring chicken either.
He's a Joe out of the 4-hole. Brandon Marion Lee from HerFantasyFootball.com is in the 5 spot. Dennis Young with the 4 Taylor team out of the 6-hole is a Joe. Shane Hallam from DraftTV.com is out of the 7 spot. He's a pro. Paul Schmidt, what was he going with? His team name, was that the Tickler?
No. Chris Carlson.
Yeah. All right. We know Paul affectionately as the Chef. He's out of the 8 spot. Michael Goings out of Dynasty Football Factory is a pro. He's number 9. The Tickler is Chris Carlson, my fault, at the 10 spot. Rumford Johnny, DraftDayConsultants.com, is an 11-spot player, and he's a pro. And last but not least, Mark Harrelson is a Joe main event player out of the 12 spot. And are you working on that YouTube, or what do we got here?
Yes, I am. I am working on it right now. There's a little snafu there. We will get it up. I promise you we'll get it up. It's just going to take a little bit.
We had 4 straight drafts with no problems.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened with this one. That's okay.
Well, who knows? But here, while I do that, I don't want to delay this. I don't want to keep this from the listeners any longer. Why don't you and Darren go ahead and break down the first round here? Dave, you can just go ahead and read what happened, and then you and Darren can give your analysis. Darren, who, by the way, is drafting tomorrow, Dave.
So Darren, you're cheating right now. That's great. Out of the 1 spot, we had David Johnson go, Le'Veon Bell, and Ezekiel Elliott at the 3 spot, and Antonio Brown 4th. So it's kind of business as usual through 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's typically how they go. If you had what pick do you have, Darren? You never usually give yourself one of the top picks, but sometimes you get one. What do you got?
I got 6 for tomorrow.
6. Okay, so you don't think there's any shot you get Antonio Brown or Elliott, do you?
It could be possible that Elliott falls. I mean, I've seen him go as far as 10 and 11 in some places. So the Zeke's, it's a possibility. But not I don't think.
Yeah, you're considering snapping up Elliott at the 6 if he gets to you?
I would definitely think about it, yeah. It doesn't scare me.
Right on.
He's not been convicted of anything.
That's right. Unlike plenty of other guys. Out of the 5 spot, Brandon Marion Lee takes Odell Beckham. Dennis Young takes Julio at the 6th spot. Shady McCoy, he's been going right in that 6, 7, 8, 9 range. He goes to Shane Hallam. We have Mike Evans going to the Chef. The Chef lives in Florida, right? We're near Mike Evans in Tampa. I wonder if that has anything to do with it. Michael takes a Michael. Michael Thomas goes 9. The Tickler with Melvin Gordon right there out of the 10th spot. We've been seeing him go there quite a bit. Rumford Johnny, looks like he might be pulling the Sigmund Bloom, but he did it out of the 11th spot. He takes Gronk at 11. And Mark Harrelson takes A.J. Green at 12. Any surprise picks there that you see?
Gronk at 11, I think, is that the earliest? I think that's the earliest that he's gone in any of the Pro versus Joe's draft. So,
yeah, he's been going in the second a little bit.
Yeah, so maybe Rumford Johnny took a look at what Sigmund Bloom did last night and is going to use that as a template.
And he does, actually, as we head into the second round. Devonta Freeman goes to Mark Harrelson, and then Rumford Johnny takes Travis Kelce. So we have Gronk and Kelce out of the 11th spot tonight. Last night was out of the 12th spot with Sigmund Bloom. The double tight end theory, do you subscribe to that at all, or do you think it's okay, let me give you 3 choices. You like it, you hate it, or it's okay?
I've seen it work, and I've actually lost to people who have done that. I think last year when I was in Vegas, Mark Moyer pulled that off in one of the 750 DEs I was in, and he ended up winning. So it can definitely work for you.
Yeah, Moyer did that. I'm in that Fort Taylor, charity league with Moyer, and Moyer did the same thing. He took 3 tight ends in his first 4 picks. I think that's not just, I think that's his long-standing strategy. I think that's just the way he's going to roll. Yeah,
it's a signature move.
It certainly is. The Tickler takes Jordy Nelson to pair with Melvin Gordon, goes running back receiver out of the 10th spot. And then teams 8 and 9 both go with receivers, 2 receivers to start their drafts. Michael Thomas gets paired with Amari Cooper, and T.Y. Hilton goes to the Chef in the 8th spot. Greg Olson last night went kind of a little bit late, actually, I thought, in the late second. He goes to Shane Hallam, coming back here at the 6th pick of the second round. Keenan Allen goes to Fort Taylor. Jordan Howard, this is kind of a little bit of a fall for Howard, not too far, I guess. Brandon Marion Lee takes Jordan Howard at the 8th spot there. And Doug Baldwin goes at the 209. Jay Ajayi, this is a really big fall for Jay Ajayi. He falls all the way to the 210. Jordan Reed at the 211. And DeMarco Murray the 212 spot. What do you think of Jay Ajayi at the 210?
That's a lot later. But I often see Howard and Ajayi really kind of, they pop up anywhere. There's a lot of variance, at the beginning of the second round or the end of the second round. So those guys, I guess there's a really different sentiments in the industry about, what those guys are going to do. So, but I think that goes for a lot of the running backs anywhere in the second through I was looking at this from the second to the 6th round. Those guys all have question marks. So it's really just the guys that are going in the first round as far as running backs go that seem to be locked into a definite role, in my opinion. So if you don't get
Darren,
running
again,
back.
I sincerely apologize, but I do have to cut you off. We are right at a break. High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, rolling on right after this. Eric Balkman, Dave Gerzak, Darren Armani, you are, I feel like, it's that old SNL skit where they can never bring Lindsey Buckingham on as the final guest because I keep cutting you off. You've been a true champ tonight here. I promise you the live streaming draft board will be up shortly. I'm literally seconds away from activating that. But Darren, go ahead with your thoughts that you were sharing before the break.
Yeah, so I was saying that the running backs in the first round, they seem like they're locked in. They're low risk picks, but the backs between the second and the sixth rounds, there's a lot of questions. So you'll really see them kind of the draft position really varies from draft to draft, especially in this format, which is the unique thing about the FFPC format because it's the dual flex and you're only starting 2 running backs and 2 wide receivers. So roster construction is just totally different from draft to draft. But personally, I think wide receivers and tight ends are the thing to do between rounds 2 and 6, just based upon that the running backs in those rounds are really kind of, like I said, they have some question marks.
So you're not one of those, you wouldn't really wait until the 7th round or later to grab your tight end. You're definitely going to be one of the people who probably gets one of the top 12, you'd say, don't you think?
I've planned that, but a lot of times I've just failed to pull the trigger, and then I end up, not intentionally, but I end up getting tight ends later than I would hope to because where the tight ends go really fluctuates as well. You can't look at one draft board from any of these pros versus Joes and think, well, this is what's going to happen for me because you'll just, it's really totally unpredictable. So
that's really, to me, I just think it's so exciting. I love watching some of these drafts unfold. It gets to be exciting. You don't have the ABC type drafting with. I'm not going to say any particular formats, but formats I've played before, and actually I do enjoy. But it gets to be kind of like, all right, well I must draft this particular position because you have to have 3 of it. So it gets to be troubling actually when you see drafts that are all kind of the same.
Yeah, and the fact that these drafts are winner take all also means people are going to kind of have extreme strategies as well. So, and a lot of the other formats that, we're referring to, people have this portfolio mentality. They're trying to spread their picks across their multitude of drafts. So this is really it's total mayhem. So you come in here and you just try and survive the draft.
Mayhem, I love it. That's a great way to describe
I'll tell you what, it was a little bit of a mayhem to start the show, and Darren Armani did much more than survive tonight. Thanks so much, Darren, for all your insight. We'll be paying close attention to what you're doing tomorrow. I'm going to let you go here so you can sit back, enjoy the rest of the draft, and get to your conniving, your plotting, your scheming to try to take this thing down tomorrow, man. Good luck.
Excellent. Good night, guys.
Thanks a lot.
Darren Armani, FantasyMojo.com. I called him the godfather of the pros versus Joes competition. Dave, I think that's an accurate statement.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. Where did you guys leave off in your analysis as far as, or not analysis, but live pick coverage here?
We were right to the 24th pick, Balky. I think that's 2 rounds by my math.
Are you sure?
Yep.
Okay.
2 times 12. Yep, 24.
Got it. All right. So let's get into the third round here as it is almost complete. Rick Rode from RotoViz takes Jimmy Graham at the 301. He is the 5th tight end off the board tonight. Des Bryant goes at the 302 to John Lacknett. Matt Schauf from Draft Sharks goes with Brandon Cooks at the 303 as his number 1 receiver. Isaiah Crowell and Todd Gurley, back-to-back running backs for Joseph Lally and Brandon Marianne Lee taking Gurley there. And then we have a couple of receivers off the board. DeAndre Hopkins is Dennis Young's 3rd straight receiver to begin the draft, and then Demaryius Thomas, the rainbow start for Shane Hallam here tonight. Demaryius Thomas going at the 307. Lamar Miller is the first running back selected by Chef Paul as he takes him at the 308. Then Allen Robinson, the second team, starting with 3 straight receivers. It's Michael Goins taking him with the 309 pick. Goins, of course, drafting from the 9th spot tonight. And then the tickler, Chris Carlson, taking Leonard Fournette The first, I believe this is correct, the first rookie off the board tonight, Leonard Fournette, going to the tickler at 310, and he is the first of 3 straight running backs to finish the third round here, as we see Marshawn Lynch go to Rumford Johnny at 311, and then Ty Montgomery to Mark Harrelson and Nelson Verbit here at the 312. So Montgomery is the second running back chosen there. And Dave, this is 2 consecutive nights that we're seeing Marshawn Lynch go to a pretty significant industry pro. Last night, Sigmund Bloom takes him at the 312. Tonight, we see Rumford Johnny taking him at the 311. I have Marshawn Lynch around in my head like a ping pong ball this offseason. I don't know where I fall on him. Just when I was ready to write him off as letting somebody else take him, I see 2 pretty smart guys take Lynch at the end of the third round tonight.
Yeah, well, they can have him as far as I'm concerned. That's not.
You're not on him.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't want a guy who had a bad year last year and then he missed all of this past year. If he has a great year, congratulations, you made a superior pick. That's fine. I'm not going to take that risk.
He's not going to be your risk to take. So it's fair analysis from you, my friend. As I look at this draft, how it's shaping up, we have 5 tight ends off the board in the first 3 rounds. You heard Darren Armani saying maybe Rumford Johnny taking the template from Sigmund Bloom as he goes with the exact same first 3 picks as Sigmund Bloom did last night. Gronk, Kelsey, Lynch. He does it at the 311. Bloom did it, or he did it from the 11 spot. Bloom did it from the 12 last night.
What are you taking the 4th Bloom?
It was another running back, and I know it was Crowell, and Crowell's already off the board, so he can't do it.
Wow.
Bit of a surprise at the 402 that we're going to get to in a second. As we look back at this third round here, Dave, this seems fairly chalky. I guess if there was one thing 2 things I would say. Des Bryant falling to the 302, I don't know if that's a sign of things to come. And then you have Ty Montgomery going at the 312. I've seen him in the third round before, but is this the highest Montgomery that has gone in the pros versus Joes? I don't know if he's gone higher than this. And it's certainly Mike McCarthy, the Packers head coach, came out today and said that he's a threat to do everything. So it seems like they want to give Montgomery all he can handle, and you can do a lot worse than the starting running back in one of the most elite offenses in the NFL.
McCarthy's such a BSer. He comes out and says that the running game is going to lead the Packers offense. I mean, you've got to be kidding me. I know you have like the off-season puff pieces.
Did he really say that?
Yeah, he's like, that the running game will drive the offense. It's like, dude, give me a break. It was Football Outsiders that talks about teams that run the ball all the time. The reason that they run the ball all the time and they're winning teams, it's the other way around. It's because they're winning that they're running the ball all the time.
Oh, okay. So it's, for instance, Jacksonville, who wants to run the ball.
They're not going to run the ball at all.
Right.
Because they suck.
Right. But even if they were.
The Patriots will run the ball a lot because they're going to be up 28-7 all the time.
Yeah.
And then they'll still throw in the third and fourth quarter. That might be a bad example.
So winning begets running. Running does not beget winning.
Actually, yeah. The pass is what actually sets up winning.
Yeah.
It's a nice Football Outsiders article in the gargantuan 500-page almanac that you should buy. It's like $25, $30. It's so great to read. I always try and get it and then read it on the Kentucky trip.
Right.
Sometimes it's not out in time, so I actually have to talk to all you guys.
Yeah.
But if I can read it and not have to talk, that's the best trip for me.
Is this a sign of things to come for Des Bryant going into the third round? Because typically I've seen him in the mid to late second sometimes. I haven't really seen him in the third round a whole lot.
It's not much of a fall. We were talking about him being the turn guy like he was this year's T.Y. Hill.
Oh, that's right. You did say that. Yeah.
Last night I think he went at the 210 or 211. So he's right in those like 6 picks.
Okay.
He has actually a pretty low variance. I don't think he's moving around much.
More rookie running backs are off the board here in the fourth round. The first pick actually to Mark Harrelson and Nelson Verbit was Aaron Rodgers. So they go back-to-back Packers. They get the running game, they get the passing game. Boom, boom, right there.
Right
two big pieces of it. Frank Gore, Dave. Frank Gore at the 402 tonight. This is interesting by Rumford Johnny taking him there. You look at this team, say like 3 years ago. Man, how awesome would it be to have Gronk, Lynch, and Gore?
By the way, still a good team.
Yeah.
The funny thing about Gore in this pick is this is probably about where he's going to finish, or actually he might finish higher. He finished higher last year than where he's getting picked right here.
Oh, as far as how he finished among running backs.
Was he running back 13?
I think he was 12.
Yeah, 12 or 13. So it's like, granted, he probably could have gotten him at the 5'11" or the 6'02", but it might not be bad value at all once you get to the end of the season.
Yeah, Sammy Watkins is the 403 pick tonight. Watkins going to Chris Carlson as his number 2 receiver. Michael Goins did start off. Michael Goins from Dynasty Football Factory tonight. He started off with 3 straight receivers. He gets his number 1 running back in Joe Mixon here as the second rookie off the board at the 404. Alshon Jeffrey, who had a bit of a scare, I guess, in training camp today, or was it yesterday? Landed on his shoulder funny. Seems like all is well there. So he goes to Chef Paul there. Well, listen, as long as he gets hurt and he's playing through it and playing good, who cares? You know what I mean? It's the problem is when he's missing time or when he's clearly not fit to be playing out there. And he's in a contract year, so you got to believe that he's going to want to be out there as much as he can.
He's going to want to be out there. The problem is that he gets hurt all the time. So that's one of the times he got hurt and it didn't last.
Chef Paul takes him as his number 3 receiver there in the 4th round. Dalvin Cook, the 3rd rookie off the board. The number 2 running back taken by the Hallam Hammers. That's Shane Hallam from Draft TV, taking him in the mid-4th. Terrell Pryor makes it 4 straight receivers for Dennis Young to kick things off. Julio Jones, Keenan Allen, DeAndre Hopkins, and Terrell Pryor. Now, Dave, let's stop and talk about this compared to last night. What did Matt Kelly from Player Profiler do? Took all guys with an average height and weight of maybe 5'10", 175.
All shrimps.
Yeah, and then you look at these. I guess Keenan Allen and DeAndre Hopkins aren't big, but Julio Jones is big.
Keenan Allen's pretty good size.
Is he good size?
I thought he was like 6'2", 217 or something
okay.
like that.
So, I mean, you're going with the beastly receivers here, and all these guys should have a heavy target volume this year as well, obviously.
And touchdown opportunities, too.
Yes, Julio Jones is going to be the focal point of the Falcons passing game. Keenan Allen, we saw him. It's just weird. Like, Keenan Allen, with all the catches that he had early on in that opening game where he got hurt, he still managed to finish as the number 8 receiver in fantasy football last year because he caught like 70 passes in the first 6 minutes of that Chargers game, which was insane to me that he falls to the 2nd round tonight given that he's healthy. But Keenan Allen is going to be a target monster. Hopkins, obviously, we know how important he is to that Houston offense. And Terrell Pryor, we're expecting big things for him in Washington as well. Speaking of targets, Jarvis Landry is the 2nd receiver drafted by Brandon Marianne Lee. She goes with the LSU connection there with Beckham and Landry as her top 2 receivers. Tyler Eifert is the 6th tight end off the board to Joseph Lally. He has now 2 receivers, a back and a tight end. Carlos Hyde goes up at the 410 tonight. I'm going to have to look up his ADP. I didn't think he was going that high. That's interesting. Tom Brady, the 411, and then Kyle Rudolph to Jake Rickroad to finish the 4th round off. We are going to finish this segment off here as we got to get to another break. And when we come back, we're going to have more analysis on the 5th round here in the Pros vs. Joes High Stakes Fantasy Football or Fantasy Sports Radio Network. Eric Balkman and the Dizzle hanging out with you. Pros vs. Joes, division number 5. I am the danger. Draft tonight. We had some technical difficulties, so we're only 5 rounds into it, but it has been quite an entertaining 5 rounds so far as we are bringing this to you on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network. Great stuff there in the 4th round. 2 quarterbacks coming off the board between both Don Lacknett and Mark Harrelson and Nelson Verbit taking Brady and Rodgers there. Rodgers going off the board first. Are we seeing a case, Dave? Actually, go ahead and make your point first because I want to bring something up that Rick Road did here.
I want to ask you a question. I mean, you do a lot of the commissioning in these drafts. Do you see Tom Brady as the consensus number 2, almost always going off 2nd? It seems like all the drafts I've seen, it's Rodgers and then like 8 to 10 to 15 picks go and then Brady goes. And then you have a little bit more of a lull and then whoever goes next, whether it's Luck or somebody else. There's somebody else that goes next, right?
Breeze sometimes will go. I don't really – I mean, it's usually one of those – Luck is the number 4 quarterback. I never see him go 2. Okay. I shouldn't say that. I've seen him go 2 once. That was a fun draft to cover or to commish.
But is that correct, right? It's pretty much – it's
usually Rodgers, Brady, yeah. Rodgers going off the board with an ADP of the 310, Brady at the 408. So, I mean, that followed suit tonight as far as how these guys were picked. You look at the rest of the 4th round here, and the final pick is the one I want to talk about, Kyle Rudolph going to Jake Rickroad from RotoViz. He goes Jimmy Graham and Kyle Rudolph here with his 3rd and 4th round picks. We are seeing something we saw, was it last night or was it last Tuesday, where we saw 2 teams on opposite ends grabbing two elite tight ends very early in the draft, within the first 4 rounds. And we see this again tonight with Jake Rickroad and Rumford Johnny both having 2 tight ends after 4 rounds. You're going to see a crunch here coming up. May not happen in the 5th round, maybe more likely in the 6th round we see it. And I don't want to, lead anybody on as far as who's drafting tonight of where you should pick guys. But there's going to be a crunch of tight ends here going, a run, where everybody is trying to still get a top 12 or a top 10 guy. And I think that is going to be on the horizon, and I think we have Rick Rode and Rumford Johnny to thank for that. It's always I always think about the people who were the late-round quarterback guys in football guys drafts over the past couple of years, and they would always cuss out the guy who would take the second quarterback in round 10. You know, they were there, oh, I got a top 12 guy locked in. Oh, no, this guy who took luck just grabbed Russell Wilson. Or
what are you doing, man?
Like, and that's what they would say in the chat. Like, dude, what are you doing? You just screwed up your whole draft. When he really meant you just screwed up my whole draft.
Exactly. You ruined my team.
So, and I think we might see, this take place tonight, but only at the tight end. So the rest of the fourth round, like I think you said, Dave, Carlos Hyde going a little bit early tonight. He has a normal ADP in these FFPC best ball leagues of 509. He actually goes at the 410 tonight, so about a round's difference. Not a huge deal. I thought we would see some tight ends go off the board shortly. It doesn't appear that it's going to be happening in the front half of round number 5, as there is a lot of yellow here, and those are receivers.
The pick of the draft is in this round. I just think it's an amazing gutsy pick.
Okay, well we'll get to it. I'm looking at the same board. I'm not sure if I'm seeing it. But okay, let's keep going, and we'll get to it organically. Stephon Diggs is the 501 by Rick Rode, Jake Rick Rode from RotoViz. He goes with Diggs as his number 1 receiver. Tyreek Hill goes to Don Lacknett here as his number 2 receiver. Golden Tate is the second receiver selected by Matt Schauf from DraftSharks.com. Willie Snead goes off the board at the 504, followed by Zach Ertz as Brandon Marianne Lee's number 1 tight end here. And then 5, count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 straight receivers here by Dennis Young as he gets Devontae Adams to go with Pryor, Hopkins, Allen, and Jones. Talk a little bit about why that was so gutsy. I think I know where you're going with it, but explain it to the listeners.
Well, I mean, every time we've seen Devontae Adams getting taken, where's he going, Bulk? He's going with like the 401, 402, 403. Here he goes with the 506, and Dennis Young already had taken 4 wide receivers, and he obviously probably didn't want to do that necessarily. I don't think this was part of his plan. But he was looking at Fitzgerald, which, by the way, that was another great pick, too. That's a big fall for Fitz. But when Devontae Adams is there, getting like a round and a half's worth of value, you have 4 wide receivers. You know what? I love that he took the 5th wide receiver. He's gonna be a little weak at running back, too. He's going to be a little bit weak at tight end, probably. But his receivers are going to be so monstrous. And with all the bye weeks and injury issues, of course, the Keenan Allen, he's going to probably have that. With all the injury issues that people have, you need good receivers. And you have 5 receivers like this. It's a great start. To get Adams as your WR5 is like insane.
Yeah, it is insane. Larry Fitzgerald.
It's almost not possible.
Yeah, it's tough to do. It's very tough to do. I should have been looking this up, but Devontae Adams in this format normally is going at the 407, so he got some pretty good value.
About a 1 round.
About a round difference there. Larry Fitzgerald, Martavis Bryant, the next 2 receivers off the board, followed by Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry tonight is the 8th tight end taken. Michael Crabtree is the 3rd receiver taken by the tickler, Chris Carlson, and then Emmanuel Sanders goes to Rumford Johnny as the penultimate pick in round 5. Delaney Walker wrapping things up here.
You got to get that penultimate in there every broadcast.
Sometimes a couple of drafts. Let's get to another phone call here. We're going to go to the 412. You are on the air with Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Who is this?
Hey, it's Shane Hallam picking out of the 7th spot tonight.
Fitzgerald, what's up with that pick? That was beautiful.
I had Adams and him queued up, and once it was a pick before mine, I knew I was getting one of them, so it was that easy. I was going to take a different position. That was my plan there, but I couldn't pass it up.
Has anybody drafted Larry Fitzgerald this year and regretted it afterwards, where you get drafter's remorse? I don't think anybody has.
He's a very comfy pick.
Yeah, and everybody seems like oh, and then I got Fitz here. It makes a lot of sense. So I think it's hard to screw up a Fitz pick. So let's talk about this your draft, how it's shaping up here, Shane. You get McCoy as your number 1 running back in the first round. That I like that pick. Obviously, I've been vocal about my support for LaShawn McCoy this year. And then you take Greg Olsen in the second round. Part of the plan that you were trying to deploy tonight, or was it a case of I'm going to try to make sure I get an elite one just in case the guys behind me at the 2-3 turn go crazy? I'm going to make sure I get an elite one here in the mid-second.
It was part of my plan. That's kind of what I went with going in. I was thinking about Olsen there. I've been following the last 4 drafts. I did a lot of work today, just saying, okay, where do I have to take the guy right now? I feel like I've screwed up. This is my 6th year in the Prince Richard Jones, I think, and I've screwed up because I've drafted teams that look good on paper that, you when Dave will blow about on the air and I can post on Twitter and feel good about myself, and then I get like 6th in my division and it doesn't help anything. I'm going to get the guys this year. So, that's early for Olsen, but I think he's an elite option. He's a healthy option, and he's the best pass catcher on that team. So for me, it's a slam dunk. You get a 1.5 tight end who is going to produce. And honestly, the tight end position, I think there's just a lot of question marks out there that.
Shane Hallam, of course, joining the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour tonight. Shane, we had some connection issues there with your phone call. If you can give us a call back on the blower in the studio, we'd love to put you back on, because that was some good analysis on your tight ends there. And actually, Shane just made a pick on the air too, which we missed. But it was another tight end, so we'll actually talk a little bit about that if he can get into that. No, he will. Let's. It sounded
a little bit like a robot.
A little bit, the Rastafarian robot, who has made an appearance on this show before. Shane, your tight end analysis on Olsen, and then finish that up, and then your Ebron pick here as your number 2 tight end in round 6.
Yeah, sorry, Blog Talk Radio just doesn't like me, I guess, and kicked me off. But
it doesn't like anyone.
Look, yeah, the Olsen pick, I wanted that consistency. So I felt good about him, and Ebron was a guy I actually had pegged for that kind of 5th round range where I took Fitz and I couldn't pass on Fitz. So I was hoping that either Ebron or maybe a Zach Ertz or someone would fall to me. Once again, I think tight end is such a variable position. This gives me a solid number 1, and it gives me a number 2 in Ebron, who has some more upside, has a lot of downside, is a risk, but I think you need to take some risks to win this competition. So I want to kind of balance that, the safety of an Olsen, of a Fitzgerald, with some of the risk, and I think that's what Eric Ebron's going to bring, and he did very well under Cooter when he took over, so I think that's only going to continue.
Yeah, anytime someone says Cooter, I always just think of Dukes of Hazzard. That, first of all, it means that's how old I am. Yeah. And you have a name Cooter, Jim Bob Cooter. I mean, dude, you have to be a redneck.
Yeah.
You have to be.
It's crazy because Dave doesn't look like he's 63 years old, but it's you keep
I was
yourself.
A kid when I was watching Dukes of Hazzard.
Keep yourself in tremendous shape. Everybody loves it.
I try.
I'm curious, Shane, because a decision that a lot of, if you're looking at rookie running backs, a decision a lot of drafters will be making this summer is Dalvin Cook versus Christian McCaffrey. You end up going with Dalvin Cook in the 4th round. I don't know if you were considering McCaffrey there, but tell us a little bit about why you like Cook for your fit on your team at that spot.
Well, look, this I'm a dynasty guy, and I was taking probably the oldest team so far, so I had to get a rookie in there at some point with that 4th round pick. No, I consider McCaffrey, and then he kept on falling, and he was almost there for my 6th round pick. I would have grabbed him, but I think with Cook, Latavius Murray is still out. There's no timetable for his return. That came out today. I think Cook is, despite the combine numbers, you watch the film, and I think he's as talented as Joe Mixon. I think he is as naturally gifted in short space as Leonard Fournette. And honestly, that's a team in the Vikings that strikes me as a very balanced team and a well-coached team. And so if you can coach up Dalvin Cook, he can catch the ball, he can do everything. I think they're going to find him very useful. And I think in a Pros versus Joes in the DE, if you can find that hot rookie that's going to jump in there and ascend past his draft position, then it's going to really pay off for you. And to me, I don't think Leonard Fournette's going to do much better than his 3rd round ADP, but I think Dalvin Cook could be right up there and be the top rookie running back. So that's why I want to go with him as my RB2.
Shane, we're coming up again on a break here, so we're going to let you go and get back to the draft. I really appreciate you calling in. Good luck the rest of the way in not only this draft, but all your drafts this summer, of course, all your dynasty leagues as well. Thanks so much, man.
And by the way, thank you for being so patient with our delays.
We certainly appreciate that.
No problem. Thanks, guys.
Shane Hallam, of course, you can follow him on Twitter at Shane P. Hallam. Good stuff there from him. Good stuff in his draft so far. We have another round to cover here as we head into our final break of the night. You are listening to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Eric Balkman, Dave Gerzak, much more live draft coverage right after this on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network. The home stretch is on here on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network with the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. I am at Eric Balkman on Twitter. He is at David Gerzak on Twitter. We are covering the Pros versus Joes number 5 draft tonight. Number 5. It is the I Am the Danger draft. Giving you pick-by-pick analysis, let you guys know what we think of it, how they compare to the previous Pros versus Joes drafts, and basically what's at stake here tonight is a 2018 FFPC main event entry. It is a $1,750 value. Only one team is going to come up with it out of this league tonight. Of course, the other 5 leagues will win a main event team as well, the winner of those leagues. We are covering the action for you live. The last, of course, we had Shane Hallam on before the break. The last we heard, or the last we picked up off was the end of the 5th round. Let's go back into the action here in the 6th round. Julian Edelman leads it off for Mark Harrelson and Nelson Verbit, followed by Devontae Parker, the second wide receiver for Rumford Johnny here, and the second receiver taken in the 6th round. Mark Ingram to Chris Carlson. Right after that is his number 3 running back. And Michael Goins, ironically from DynastyFootballFactory.com, has a pair of rookie running backs as his number 1 and number 2 running backs on his roster. He has Joe Mixon in the round 4, and then Christian McCaffrey, Dave, falls all the way to the 604 tonight. I am really, really surprised to see that.
Evidently, none of these people either look at the internet or read the paper. You know, they still make print papers, Bob.
Yes, I'm aware.
You know, the Wall Street Journal still comes out in print. I think the USA Today, they're still making it. But they have these online resources where, you know, when the starting running back for the team, when Jonathan Stewart is the one who's praising McCaffrey, saying no one can cover him one-on-one in pass coverage.
The guy who is getting his food taken off the table
exactly.
by this
Even
guy.
He's dazzled by him.
Yeah.
When he's saying it, he sounds like McCaffrey's agent, Balky. So the fact that he's going in the 6th round, I think is an uber value. Great pick there by Goins.
Yeah, and he's normally going at the 405 in FFPC.
That's so sick. That's so sick for the hyped-up guy who drops 2 full rounds.
I was actually looking for McCaffrey before when we were talking with Shane Hallam about his Dalvin Cook pick, and I'm like, man, did I miss him? And no, I didn't. He had not gone until the 604. This could be one of the picks we look back on, potentially who wins this competition. Everybody's going to say, hey, why did all these guys let Christian McCaffrey slip to the 604? And maybe it pays off big for Michael Goins. Finishing off the 6th round here, Danny Woodhead, the second running back to Chef Paul. Eric Ebron, we talked to Shane Hallam about that as his number 2 tight end. Adrian Peterson, the number 1 running back drafted by Dennis Young after he goes 5 straight receivers. That, again, an attractive pick this late. Say what you will about Peterson, but the value here is pretty good. Jamison Crowder, the number 3 receiver by Brandon Marianne Lee, and then Spencer Ware, the number 2 running back taken by Joseph Lally here at the end of round 6. The last 3 picks of the 6th round tonight, Matt Schauf takes Martellus Bennett as his number 1 tight end. Pierre Garçon is the 3rd receiver selected by Don Lacknett, and then Brandon Marshall, the 2nd receiver taken by Jake Rickroad from rotoviz.com. So as we navigate through 6 rounds here, Dave, we are looking at how many tight ends are off the board. And by my count, we already have 12. I thought we would have a pretty big run on them in the 5th, 6th round. Didn't happen in the 5th. Didn't happen in the 6th. And so far, not happening in the 7th either. So the McCaffrey pick, obviously, we talked about this. That's the pick that stands out for me. I do like the value of Adrian Peterson here. I do like the value, especially when you could say that Spencer Ware actually went off the board, I believe, in the 3rd round last night. Ironically, to, I think, that 3 spot again. He falls all the way to the 6th round tonight. Very compelling stuff. A very interesting 6th round here for running backs, and that's not even taking into a factor of Mark Ingram going and Danny Woodhead going. So a lot of compelling running back selections here in the 6th round, Dave.
Awesome. I love the running backs, Balky.
Do you love all these running backs, though? I know you're not a fan of. I know you don't like Peterson. I know.
West, to me, sorry, Shane.
No. 6th round. 6th round.
Oh, 6th round.
Yeah,
okay,
I know you don't like Peterson.
You're right. I don't like Peterson.
And Ingram, I know you don't like.
Yeah.
The only reason I like Ingram is because he's part of that 3-man thing. I mean, but I do think I like Ingram much better than Peterson. And the rookie is still a rookie. I guess I don't mind Ingram that much, but I mean, Again, you know how much I love McCaffrey. I also like Woodhead a lot, so I would have gone that way. This is going to do it for our Fantasy Sports Radio Network broadcast. We'll be back next Friday. Stay tuned for more. Eric Balkman, Dave Gerzak, High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. I promise you, for everybody who has been so patient with us tonight, no more breaks. That's my reward to you. We're going to do this commercial-free the rest of the way and get into the analysis. We'll get into some team analysis probably in the next 15 minutes here and tell you about what we think of each of these teams' cores. Dave had some good running back analysis here in the 6th round. We are now through round 7, and to tell you what happened, is Jake Rickroad here taking Eddie Lacy in the first pick of the 7th round, followed by Tevin Coleman. Tevin Coleman falling all the way to the 702 tonight. He in FFPC best ball formats normally goes at the 606, so not a big drop, but you're looking at 2/3 of a round, almost a full round of drop here. So the running backs seem to have fallen a little bit tonight. Everybody loading up on receivers, making sure that they're getting a tight end tonight. Tevin Coleman is the 2nd running back drafted by Don Lacknett here. Drew Brees goes off the board to Matt Schauf at the 703 tonight as his number 1 quarterback, followed by 4 straight running backs, Amir Abdullah to Joseph Lowley, C.J. Anderson to Brandon Marianne Lee, Bilal Powell to Dennis Young, Terrence West to Shane Hallam. Andrew Luck goes off the board to Paul Schmidt here at the 708, Kareem Hunt, and Mike Gillislee, a pair of running backs going off the board to Michael Goins and Chris Carlson. Chris Carlson now has 4 running backs on his team with Gillislee as his RB4. Marcus Mariota tonight is the 5th quarterback taken, and he is the number 1 quarterback for Rumford Johnny. And finishing things off here in the 7th round is Theo Riddick, the final pick of the 7th round tonight to Mark Harrelson and Nelson Verbit. So let's talk about Dennis Young's team. I feel like this is a team that we will be talking about more in our broadcast here as we enter our final half hour. You look at what he's done now with Adrian Peterson and Bilal Powell as his number 1 and 2 running backs after going 5 straight receivers. Still does not have a tight end, but a nice job filling in those top 2 running back positions there with a big-time pass catcher in Bilal Powell, who could be the number 1 running back in New York this year, and then Adrian Peterson, not a big pass catcher, could be the number 1 running back in a very elite offense.
Yeah, I like the Powell pick, actually. Dennis and I are in that same Taylor Young league, and I took Powell there. So obviously Dennis is sweating my pick.
Just totally sweating you, yeah.
No, it's like, by the way, I took another player on that same team in the running game a little bit later, so maybe you want to do that, pair it up with Powell. But so I don't know.
Elijah McGuire?
Exactly. Yeah. AP, that's not my favorite favorite pick, but I guess if it works for him, it works for him. I think Spencer Ware might have been a better pick for him there. I like Amir Abdullah as well. And even skinny Eddie Lacy, you never know. He's got a good opportunity as well.
I haven't heard any Eddie Lacy weight updates lately. Do you know when his next one is? Is it like he's got to hit it at the end of July or
maybe
2 weeks?
Maybe he's on the
into
maintenance plan though.
Well, no, because he was close. See, they wanted him to play in the mid.
He's got to be right there.
He wanted to play in there. They wanted him to play in the mid 240s, and I feel like his last weigh-in was like 249, 250 or something.
Yeah, that's fine. He's there.
And that was before training camp. I mean, obviously, you would think a guy like that is going to lose some water weight, in training camp to. And I'm sure Seattle, by the way, is trying to arrange that to give him the confidence. Like, okay, Eddie, listen, we're going to have you weigh in today, for your contract. Before we do that, listen, this is the day that running backs go for a 4-mile jog, and we'll give you some water afterwards. But, of course, we're going to have you weigh in. Well, whatever, something where he has to lose, so there's no question that he hits it to not necessarily make sure he gets the money, but to give him that confidence that he is doing things right.
He could have done like one of those UFC water weight drops that they do. Those things are crazy. They just drop like 10 pounds overnight because they stop consuming water. They don't take in hardly any calories, no carbs. So then all the carbs drain out, all the water weight drains out, and you drop like 15 pounds.
There was they're drinking the fight milk. That's an It's Always Sunny joke where the Mac and Charlie come up with this protein shake called Fight Milk. That helps everybody build muscle. And the UFC and the MMA guys love it, not because it builds muscle, but because it's so rancid, it makes them puke. And then they're drinking it before their weigh-in so they can hit their weight.
Pretty funny,
actually. Yeah, it was very good stuff. So you look in this round, you said you were not a fan of the Terrence West pick. I'm kind of with you on that. Mike Gillislee.
It seems it's had early.
Right. Mike Gillislee, even with the Dixon injury.
To me, even with the Dixon injury. Yeah.
Mike Gillislee.
Whereas Gillislee I like that pick. I'm starting to like Gillislee more and more.
I am too, and I'm surprised he's not going up higher. I wonder if this is like Patriots running back anti-bias, where
people don't want to be staking a single-digit round pick into the Patriots running game.
Yeah, it might be the case, but it returns value. It returned value last year.
It certainly
did. And supposedly there was kind of news out today that Belichick loved Gillislee last year. He was a huge fan of his game.
Right. Yeah. And listen, that's the guy you want to impress if you are on New England. Let's get into the 8th round here. Jeremy Maclin is Mark Harrelson, Nelson Burbitt's pick here at the 801, followed by Kenny Britt at the 802 to Rumford Johnny. You know what I just realized, Dave?
What's up?
You know how I normally, when we recap rounds, I start going the wrong way on it, and you're like, Balky, you're reading it wrong. I don't think I've done that this year.
No, you haven't.
It's a feather in my cap because I'm very happy about that.
I think you only called, one thing wrong, where it was like it was a 10:04, and I think you said it was a 9:04 last night. And then you were talking so quickly and nicely that I didn't even bother to correct you.
Oh, I was going to say,
it was so tough for me not to correct you.
Well, no,
10:04, Balky, 10:04.
Yeah. I was going to say I don't remember this happening, but this is obviously the first time hearing about it. The listeners obviously did not call me out on it too. Derrick Henry is the pick. He goes at the 8:03.
They feel sorry for it.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. He falls to the 8:03 tonight. Another running back who has fallen. That's, to me,
that's a huge deal for Henry.
One of the stories of the night. Actually, Derrick Henry, 8:08 in this format.
Oh, I guess not. So I guess I'm totally wrong.
Yeah, well, but I was with you. I thought that was late for him. According in the last 7 days, and maybe this is people getting excited about DeMarco Murray, but in the last 7 days in the FFPC, in the DE format, Henry is going at the 8:08. Let's move on and talk about Derek Carr because he was the selection at the 8:04 tonight. Carr going to Michael Goins. Corey Coleman is the number 5 receiver drafted by Chef Paul tonight. Good news out of Cleveland. Sounds like Corey Coleman was making some splashy plays in training camp today. Good news for your I Got 5 on it wager, Dave, as Corey Coleman is already turning heads, as the kids say, in Cleveland training camp. I don't know who was throwing to him either, which is also good news for Coleman that he's doing it without the aid of any talented quarterbacks there. Kirk Cousins, of course, the number 2 2017 finisher for quarterbacks this year, my projection. Kirk Cousins goes to Shane Hallam as his number 1 quarterback. Paul Perkins off the board to Dennis Young here, the FFPC Joe, as his number 3 running back. Now we'll see if he's just hitting the running backs. You'd like to see him get a tight end in there somewhere. I don't know if he's going to do it if he's concentrating on running back this much. I don't know what I would do in this situation. I'd try to get a tight end, but man, with the running backs falling, you can get some value here tonight. LeGarrette Blount, the new Philadelphia Eagle, goes to Brandon Marianne Lee here tonight at the, this would have been the 8:08 pick, I believe. Yes. Then Russell Wilson follows that up to Joseph Lally. Russell Wilson is the number 1 quarterback for him. Doug Martin is the 8:10 pick tonight to Matt Schauf as his number 4 running back. And we have Don Lacknett doubling up tight ends, getting Jason Witten to go with his Jordan Reed. Witten, the second to last pick in the 8th round, followed by Deshaun Jackson. Jake Rickroad's number 3 receiver. Doug Martin, I thought, would have been the story last night.
He's the story every night. We talk about him every time.
I don't think we do.
Yes, we do.
Well, the reason we brought him up last.
Talking about Doug Martin.
Well, the reason we brought him up last night was because of what Jason Licht said about him, potentially not being in Tampa and making him earn the job.
And you were saying he's going to get cut.
And he might get cut. He might not even make the team. They can save the money. What?
I don't think that's what he meant.
I know. Yeah, that's what you said last night. But tonight, Rick Road. No. Yes, he did. Rick Road, or not Rick Road, Matt Schauf, not buying the hype, reading between the lines, thinks that Doug Martin is still going to be the guy, taking him here in the 8th round over Jacquizz Rodgers. And maybe it's just a case of, we know that Martin is going to be suspended to start the year, but maybe he does take that job back in round 4. It's all one of the things that you will have to get a good handle on in this competition in order to get your 2018 FFPC main event entry. Quarterbacks are starting to come off the board now. We still haven't seen, I think because the tight ends, because we had 12 of them off, I believe we had 12 of them off the board after 5 rounds, after 6 rounds, and we've only seen 1 tight end go off the board since the 6-10 pick. So that's 20, 26, 30 picks now with only 1 tight end. So now everybody's playing a bit of a game of tight end chicken for their backups if you don't have them yet. The quarterbacks are starting to come off the board, though, as I stated earlier. Everybody trying to get their quarterbacks, and Don Lacknett was that guy tonight, Dave, as he doubles up at quarterback here in the 8th round.
Nice.
Tom Brady in the 4th, Matt Ryan in the 9th. That is with 1, 2, 3, 4 teams without a quarterback so far. It's all been gummed up. The works have all been gummed up.
Up until this pick, For Taylor and the Tickler, 2 of the Joes have not taken a tight end or quarterback yet at all. They are only green and yellow.
Yeah, and Chris Carlson does a lot of drafts, and Dennis Young does a lot of drafts. They typically
They're not
know.
too scared.
Yeah, they typically know where players are going. And I think if you look at them, Dave, we talked about how the running backs have, or at least I've been talking about how the running backs have fallen tonight. What have those guys done in round 6 through 8? All 3 picks for both these guys: running back, running back, running back. Adrian Peterson, Bilal Powell, Paul Perkins, for Dennis Young, and then Mark Ingram, Mike Gillislee, and Derrick Henry.
Very nice.
And Derrick Henry, by the way, a guy that could be a big-time difference maker in this format if he gains a larger role with Tennessee or if DeMarco Murray goes down. And that's Chris Carlson's number 5 running back. I mean, it doesn't even necessarily need to count on him for week-to-week production. Especially if Gordon, Fournette, Ingram, and Gillislee are lifting the heavy load there. So interesting draft for Chris Carlson there. Let's get into the 9th round here.
Dennis Young is abusing the wide receivers.
He really is. He's
like amazing.
He's taking advantage. Let's get into the 9th round here. This will be the final round we do, and we'll go over some brief team analysis here. Randall Cobb, the 901 to Jacob Rickroad. Matt Ryan, we already mentioned, to Don Lackman. 4 straight receivers off the board. Dante Moncrief to Matt Schauf. Cameron Meredith to Joseph Lally. Rashard Matthews to Brandon Marion Lee. And then Kelvin Benjamin goes to Dennis Young as his number 6th receiver. His 6th receiver. Doesn't have a quarterback, doesn't have a tight end. In round 9, he's drafting his 6th receiver. Dennis Young is doing a pretty amazing job of collecting the dominant group of receivers in this draft.
When is Kelvin Benjamin? What's his ADP? In 906.
Yeah, in this format, Kelvin Benjamin is normally going at the 707.
24 picks of value?
Yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, that's nuts.
Very, very, very crazy.
You almost have to take him there. I mean, it's tough to pass. You can't pass Devontae Adams. You can't pass on Benjamin.
There's been some crazy value in this draft tonight. Jameis Winston to Shane Hallam here. Giovanni Bernard is the number 3 running back to Chef Paul Schmidt. Eric Decker, the number 4 receiver, taken by Michael Goins. And then Cam Newton and Tyrod Taylor. Cam Newton to Chris Carlson. Tyrod Taylor to Rumford Johnny. Tyrod Taylor as his number 2 quarterback there tonight for Rumford Johnny. And it's on, we've caught up, it's on Nelson Verbit and Mark Harrelson for the last pick of the 9th round, which we're going to get to in just a little bit. But before we do, let's go back to the phone lines here and bring on one of my favorite co-hosts of the show from DraftSharks.com, award-winning podcaster, award-winning projections guru. It's Matt Schauf. Matt, how are you liking your draft so far tonight?
I'm feeling pretty good, especially after being called one of your favorites, man. Now I'm just warm and fuzzy.
Yeah, I've been plotting to get rid of Gerzak on this show for years, and then you go ahead and you and Jared Smola get this great podcast going with Draft Sharks, and then you guys go ahead and win an award. We don't have enough money to afford you, even if we're trying to bring you over now.
Do they want a potty?
They wanted FSTA, Best Podcast, Draft Sharks Fantasy Football.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, that's very cool. Yeah, so congrats on that. But Matt, tell us why you like your draft tonight.
I mean, I always have to get reacquainted with the format that you guys are so familiar with around here. I was happy to start with the running backs that I got. I feel comfortable at that wideout. I'm not usually going to take Drew Brees in a draft, but in round 7, I liked the week-to-week high ceiling with him, and I think there's a drop-off after that. So, I mean, I guess basically there's not a position that I feel bad at so far. There aren't big misses. There are certainly guys all the time where you snap and say, I was hoping he was going to make it to me, but I feel pretty good about the way things are falling.
You can't. I mean, did you think Jay Ajayi was going to be available for you in the second round? I mean, you talked about liking your running backs, but Ajayi, getting him that late, you had to be really happy with that.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't expecting it, but once it started, I was like, well, it's pretty good actually to be drafting on the day where he left for a concussion check. But even if he has a concussion, I mean, we're a month away from the season starting. I'm not worried about that. I will absolutely take him if you guys let me. I thought that Des Bryant was going to sneak to me in round 3. He went off the board 1 pick earlier, but that's my biggest complaint to this point, I guess. So I'm pretty good shape. Although Austin Hooper, I was actually hoping to get this round.
Yeah, he just goes off the board to Chef Paul Schmidt here in the 10th round. Matt Schauf from DraftSharks.com joining us tonight. Talk a little bit about that Carlos Hyde pick, because it was a little, I mean, again, ADP, who cares, but it was a little bit earlier than when he had been going in this format, and you actually already had 2 running backs. So tell us a little bit about why Carlos Hyde made sense for you at the 4:10 tonight.
So format, best ball, I want to get guys that I know are going to get the ball. And, you know, whatever the latest report about Kyle Shanahan proposing to Joe Williams is, I don't believe that this guy who has spent less than 1 season as a starting college running back is going to suddenly come in and push aside Carlos Hyde. I think Carlos Hyde is going to be their workhorse on the ground. I think he's a good player. I think Kyle Shanahan knows how to coach the run game. You know, we thought the same thing about Tevin Coleman coming in to unseat Devontae Freeman a couple years ago in Atlanta. It seemed to work out pretty well for Freeman. So I will take Hyde. I will gladly take him in the 4th round. I think he's going to be the guy. I don't even think there's that much risk at the end of round 4 with him.
So are you saying that, and then you're going to grab Joe Williams here in like the 12th round? Because now that you've talked him down.
Well, if I were anyone else in this league, I would not touch Joe Williams until at least round 15.
Interesting.
Good move. I agree. Don't take him at all.
Yeah. Listen, Matt, you got a pick coming up here, and I'm curious to pick your brain as to who it's going to be. But you've already taken care of your number 1 tight end. You get Martellus Bennett in the 6th. You've already taken care of your number 1 quarterback. You get Drew Brees here in the 7th round. 4 running backs on your roster, 3 receivers on your roster. As it's, I believe you're on deck here. Who are you trying to, who are you hoping for here? Who are you deciding between in the 10th round?
Well, at my last turn, I had a list of 4 tight ends or so that I was hoping that one of them would make it to me. There was a bit of a run since then, so might be wide out. You know, might be another tight end. We'll see. I can't show my hand in case Mr. Lally is listening.
Yeah, listen, no doubt he is. Everybody listens to the show, especially the drafters for sure. So yeah,
it's already been brought up in the chat room. Guys are talking about it.
Oh yeah, well there you go. Okay, so the spies and trolls are out, Dave. At least,
hello to all the spies and trolls.
To listening and following along on YouTube for sure. YouTube.com/highstakesfantasyfootball is where you can get the video link. If I didn't mention that tonight, I do apologize. The pick is in, Matt. It looks like Marvin Jones went to Joseph Lally, and you go with John Brown in the 10th. John Brown, tell us a little bit about why that pick was your pick here.
Well, it's late enough where, you know, the health risk is minimized. And if he is healthy or for however long he's healthy, I think there's lots of upside. He's a good downfield guy. He's a good short-range guy. Larry Fitzgerald's nearing the end. You know, we'll see what else they have around Fitz and David Johnson. We'll see what Carson Palmer has left. But I feel like I've mitigated the risk, and the upside on John Brown is great.
The upside on Matt Schauf on this program is always great. I certainly appreciate the analysis. Every time you come on, Matt, we all follow you on Twitter at SchaufDS. Check out the podcast at DraftSharks.com and all the great analysis that you guys have at DraftSharks.com. A lot of awesome stuff there. Award-winning projections, award-winning podcast. Dave, what more could we possibly ask for on this?
I'm telling you, I love the articles too, like just the comeback player of the year, the first round bust, and then the emails too. If you don't subscribe and you're on their email list, it's so tough to not subscribe because it's like, blah, blah, blah. First round bust. Do you want to know what it is? Subscribe now. It's like you have to do it.
I'm always entertained by the shark bites, too, on DraftSharks.com. Matt, keep up the great work. Keep up the great work in the draft tonight. Good luck to you the rest of the way, my friend. Thanks for giving us a buzz and chatting with us tonight.
Hey, thank you guys very much for having me on. It's always great to hear you, and thanks for all your support.
Absolutely. Matt Schauf, DraftSharks.com. Great individual. Guy who, Dave, has we teamed up in the Scott Fish Bowl last year, made it all the way to, I think, the second to the last week, and we lost in our conference championship, or however, I can't remember what it was.
He wisely kicked you to the curb.
No, he got his own team. He should have had his own team last year, and I didn't see his name. I said, hey, man, we should team up. And so then
Bulky, you're no longer needed.
Well, here's the thing. I know he's going to win the whole Scott Fish Bowl this year because he doesn't have me dragging him down. So, possibly. And I will be exposed as a fraud more so than I already have.
I totally forgot who I even have on that team. I honestly right this second cannot remember a single player I drafted.
Really?
I might have taken McCaffrey.
Well, I'm sure you took McCaffrey.
Not for sure.
And Tyreek Hill.
I don't know if I don't. You know what? Whatever.
I'm trying to think of the litany here that you have drafted.
My team was. It's not that good. I screwed up. Who cares?
Let's get into some team analysis. We only have about 12 minutes left on the show tonight, but we're already into the double-digit round, so I think we can get a pretty good handle on each of these teams. We'll kick things off with Jake Rickroad, David Johnson, DeMarco Murray, Eddie Lacy at running back, Stephon Diggs, Brandon Marshall, Deshaun Jackson, Randall Cobb at receiver, Jimmy Graham, Kyle Rudolph at tight end, Eli Manning, and Matthew Stafford at quarterback. I think the fact that Rickroad has drafted in the FFPC before, understands where players are going, that helped him out. I really like this team.
To be honest with you, it's kind of tough to boss the David Johnson team, and so Rickroad didn't do that, so that was good. Good job. The Jimmy Graham Rudolph, that was a nice little combo.
Yeah.
I like, here's where I'm going to take some Diggs. Diggs is your number one. That's not so great necessarily. And
but
Marshall
you're waiting
on
receiver until round 5.
Well, that's what happens when you wait.
Right.
And so his weakness is wide receiver. I mean, when you have Randall Cobb as your number 4 and Deshaun Jackson as your 3, that could be problematic. It may not be, but it could be. But luckily, you have a lot of flex options, which is nice. He's going to have Lacy, Rudolph, or one of the other, Cobb or Jackson as his flex. I like how he waited on quarterback. That was smart. Separating those tight ends and quarterbacks. Good job.
For sure. Don Lacknett drafting onto the second spot tonight. Le'Veon Bell, Tevin Coleman, Matt Forte at running back. The receivers are Des Bryant, Tyreek Hill, Pierre Garçon, and Adam Thielen. Tight ends, Jordan Reed, Jason Witten, Tom Brady, and Matt Ryan are the quarterbacks. Dave, not the players I necessarily would have drafted. I don't mind the construction of this team. But as a solid squad, I'm a little nervous for his RB2 and RB3, but if they come through, this team should be competitive all the way through.
Well, I think his mistake pick here was the 902 taking Matt Ryan there. I think he should have passed on him. I don't like Moncrief for Matthews necessarily as much as Benjamin.
Kelvin Benjamin, yeah.
Yeah, Meredith. Benjamin was a true value there. He could have had Benjamin as his WR4 to pair with Le'Veon Bell and Tevin Coleman, then Forte after that. Because he didn't have a need for Matt Ryan when you have Brady. Brady doesn't get hurt that often, and there's so many quarterbacks available. I feel that was his one and kind of only mistake. I liked a lot of the other picks. Garçon was a little bit early, too, in the 6th.
Matt Schauf from Draft Sharks, just heard from him. His running backs, Ezekiel Elliott, Jay Ajayi, Carlos Hyde, Doug Martin. Receivers, Brandon Cooks, Golden Tate, Dante Moncrief, John Brown. Tight ends, Martellus Bennett and Charles Clay. Quarterback is Drew Brees. Dave, this is another solid team. I can't poke too many holes in this. I guess you can make a case that the receivers might be a little weak, but I like Bennett and Clay this year. I like the fact that he's strong up front with running back, and to get Drew Brees to anchor your quarterback staff, it makes a lot of sense.
Well, obviously your boyfriend's team, you're going to like his team.
Yeah.
So anyway.
I think that's pretty clear. I think everybody expected me to say nothing bad about Matt Schauf's team.
So, I mean, here's I guess I don't like Golden Tate as much as Matt does. I don't like Martellus Bennett as much as Matt does. So I think those are the picks that I wouldn't have taken necessarily. But if he likes those players, that's what he likes. I mean, he's probably going based on either his rankings or Draft Sharks or both. And I thought the Ajayi pick was fantastic in the second round. I actually agree. I'm going back and forth on the Carlos Hyde thing. I swear, I probably will take him in a few spots, Carlos.
Really?
But I probably will, but not probably as early as the 4th. I don't think that's quite
okay.
Relevant. I think I could get him at some value.
Joseph Lally, let's check out his value.
I will try and get Joe Williams. I know that a lot of people aren't handcuffing. I will try and get Joe Williams with Hyde.
Isaiah Crowell, Spencer Ware, Amir Abdullah at running back, Antonio Brown, Doug Baldwin, Willie Snead, Cameron Meredith, Marvin Jones at receiver. Tight ends are Tyler Eifert and C.J. Fedorowicz. Quarterback is Russell Wilson. I am not a massive fan of the running back stable, but I can get behind the tight ends, even though I'm not the biggest Fedorowicz guy in the world when you have Eifert in front of him. Russell Wilson is fine at quarterback. I like the receivers. So running back, to me, is the question mark on this squad.
Yeah, he waited on running back, so Crowell's is number 1. It's a little bit of a problem. But, I mean, if Ware keeps the jobs, if Abdullah actually does what he's supposed to,
right,
those could be really good values at running back. His receivers are fantastic. This team, again, it's tough to really poke holes in it. This team could actually be really good. I think Eifert in the 4th and Wilson in the 8th, I think those are both solid picks. Both of those players could be top 3 at their position. They just currently are not because of one reason or another.
Brandon Marianne Lee from HerFantasyFootball.com is picking 5th tonight. She ended up with Jordan Howard, Todd Gurley, C.J. Anderson, LeGarrette Blount at running back, Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, Jamison Crowder, Rashard Matthews at receiver, Zach Ertz, Cameron Brate at tight end, Phillip Rivers at quarterback. So The running backs, if Gurley does indeed have a bounce back, that's a great pair to have at the top. C.J. Anderson, if he's able to keep that job, especially with Booker hurt now, he fell to the 7th round. That's pretty good value on him. And LeGarrette Blount, a guy who is 1 year removed from an 18-touchdown season. A lot of targets on this team with Beckham, Landry, and Crowder. The name of the game for receivers is target, target, target. And then Zach Ertz and Cam Brate are the tight ends. So again, as much as I thought there was going to be some teams I really liked and some teams I really didn't like tonight, this is another competitive team that I don't think has really separated from this good, solid pack that we've seen so far.
Yeah, she did a nice job with Jordan Howard and Gurley. They're not my favorite players, but they're good picks in both spots. Waiting on tight end, waiting on quarterback. That's why you have a team that's good at running back and good at receiver. This is kind of similarly drafted to how I would do it.
Dennis Young, Adrian Peterson, Bilal Powell, Paul Perkins at running back, Julio Jones, Keenan Allen, DeAndre Hopkins, Terrell Pryor, Devontae Adams, Kelvin Benjamin at receiver. Tight end is Julius Thomas. Quarterback is Dak Prescott. So he paid for it, Dave, by taking those 6 receivers in the first 9 rounds, but he got good value at running back. Now the key is making sure he builds enough depth at not only tight end but quarterback as well.
I think he's fine at quarterback. Dak Prescott's fine. I mean, he's a good young quarterback with upside. And I'm sure he'll find somebody else to take. He hopefully gets 2 other quarterbacks. I assume he will. Tight end sucks. Julius Thomas probably is going to suck. But he's got to draft a couple more guys. Maybe he gets ASJ or somebody else. His receivers are it's like on a different planet.
The best we've seen in the competition
by
so
far.
far.
They're going to be the best in the competition. There could be injuries, but these guys are amazing. And I think the running backs, I think he did fine with those.
Yep.
I thought Powell and Perkins were great picks. I don't care for Peterson, but if he likes them, that could really pay off well for him. I like this team a lot, actually. Even with the weakness at tight end, if Julius Thomas stays healthy and is good, this team could be phenomenal.
It definitely could be. Shane Hallam, we talked about his team earlier, LaShawn McCoy, Dalvin Cook, Terrence West at running back, receivers Demaryius Thomas, Larry Fitzgerald, Tyrell Williams, Quincy Enunwa, tight end Greg Olsen, and Eric Ebron. Dave, I like the quarterbacks, Kirk Cousins and Jameis Winston. Big fan of the tight ends, big fan of the quarterbacks here. I actually like the 10 and 11 picks here, Tyrell Williams and Quincy Enunwa.
Those are both great, thoughtful picks.
Really good value there for his wide receiver 3 and 4. The question mark is the running backs, Dalvin Cook running behind that Minnesota line, and then Terrence West, how effective is he going to be even without Kenneth Dixon? So if he's able to hit on a couple of running backs late, this is another great team. It already is a very good team.
Kirk Cousins is your quarterback 2? You said?
Quarterback 2.
And who's your number 1? Was
Marcus Mariota?
Oh, it was Mariota. Okay, I thought it was Seamus was up there.
Oh, he's number 3.
4.
He's 3. No, not 4. Come on, don't sell him short. He's 3.
That's amazing. I really, again, to reiterate what you were saying about Tyrell Williams and Enunwa, I thought those were fantastic picks in the 10th and 11th round. He was weak at wide receiver heading into those rounds, and now I think it's actually a stronger part of his team. And when you wait until the 3rd and then you wait until the 5th, you get fits at a value. Shady, Cook, almost all of these picks I liked. The Terrence West one is the only one I wouldn't have probably taken. I maybe would have gone with Gillislee there, or maybe Henry's a little bit early, but that's probably where I would have gone. But really, really solid.
Chef Paul Schmidt drafting from the 8th spot tonight. Lamar Miller, Danny Woodhead, Giovanni Bernard. Receivers are Mike Evans, T.Y. Hilton, Alshon Jeffrey, Martavis Bryant, Corey Coleman, and Mike Wallace. Tight end is Austin Hooper. Quarterback is Andrew Luck. It'll be interesting to see who he builds behind Austin Hooper at tight end. He'll need some depth there. The receivers are very, very, very good. Running backs, he's going to need Danny Woodhead to have that 70-plus catch season, 80-plus catch season. Lamar Miller to stay healthy and perform this year. So I'm a little bit worried about the running back depth, and obviously Andrew Luck at quarterback. We don't know kind of what's going on there. But, again, a team that has not separated. I think that every team we've covered so far, at least from my perspective, is going to be competitive. Add this one to the list as well.
Yeah, I don't have a problem. I like Woodhead, and I don't like Lamar Miller. But, if you're waiting on running back, it's fine. And Gio's not a bad pick there. His running backs, he's going to be kind of hurting at RB2 for most of the season. I thought the Corey Coleman pick as his WR5 is really nice.
Yep.
Solid team throughout. Tight end. So he's going to be weak at RB2 and tight end. The question is, will the wide receivers more than make up for it? The Chef's a really good player, so I think there's a definite possibility of it.
Yep, I agree. Michael Goins from DynastyFootballFactory.com. He goes with Joe Mixon, Christian McCaffrey, Kareem Hunt, C.J. Prosise, Jamal Charles as his running backs. Receivers are Michael Thomas, Amari Cooper, Allen Robinson, Eric Decker. Tight end is Hunter Henry and O.J. Howard. And Derek Carr is the quarterback here. So you look at this squad. 3 rookie running backs to lead it off from the Dynasty guy, which is interesting. And he goes 3 straight receivers to start it off. Again, I'm a little bit worried about Allen Robinson, and I think that pick was a little bit early. But getting Christian McCaffrey in the 6th round makes up for a lot of that.
Yesterday you were talking all about your about the dynasty guys drafting all these rookies and young guys early.
Yeah.
And you totally missed this opportunity from this player.
Yeah.
Michael Thomas, second-year player. Cooper, a third-year player. Allen Robinson, I know he's going a little bit up, fourth year. Henry's a second-year guy. Mixon, McCaffrey, Hunt are all rookies.
Yeah. Jamal Charles.
O.J. Howard's a rookie.
Yeah.
Procise is a second-year player. This is your dynasty guy. I drafted a lot of his dynasty rankings high. Nevertheless, the team could. The thing is, rookie running backs generally are not as good as they're hyped up to be. He's going to need Mixon and McCaffrey to pay off, so we'll see what happens.
Listen, McCaffrey in the 6th round, man. That's fantastic value. Chris Carlson, Melvin Gordon, Leonard Fournette, Mark Ingram, Mike Gillislee, Derrick Henry, James White. Receivers, Jordy Nelson, Sammy Watkins, Michael Crabtree. Tight ends, there are none. Quarterbacks, Cam Newton.
That's awesome.
Cam Newton, Ben Roethlisberger, Carson Palmer.
Good for you, buddy.
He's awesome at quarterback. He's awesome at running back. Worried about the receiver depth, and
love his tight end.
He gets an eye for tight ends. And
Incomplete.
This will be fantastic to see how Chris Carlson finishes this team off. Your thoughts on this squad, Dave?
That's so great. I love it. I like it. It's solid overall. We'll see where he ends up on tight ends. I'll let you go.
Rumford Johnny goes with Marshawn Lynch, Frank Gore, Darren Sproles at running back. Receivers, Emmanuel Sanders, Devontae Parker, Kenny Britt, Ted Ginn. Tight ends, Rob Gronkowski, Travis Kelce, and Jack Doyle, Marcus Mariota, Tyrod Taylor. Totally on board with quarterback and tight end, Dave. Very concerned about the running back depth on this team, and I'm not a huge fan of the receiver core as well.
I'm concerned about the running backs and receivers, and that's what happens when you go Gronkowski early.
Mark Harrelson, Nelson Verbit, rounding things up tonight. Devontae Freeman, Ty Montgomery, Theo Riddick, and Duke Johnson at running back. A.J. Green, Julian Edelman, Jeremy Maclin, Sterling Shepard at receiver. Delaney Walker, Kobe Fleener at tight end. Aaron Rodgers, Andy Dalton are the quarterbacks. This is another well-balanced squad. There's a lot of potential for some upside, and I like Harrelson and Verbit's team here as well.
Yeah, they acquitted themselves really well. Rodgers, Delaney Walker, some of my new favorite guys. I don't know, Fleener Balky. He's your boy, not mine.
He was my boy last year.
That's true, not your boy.
Don't put that voodoo on me.
You're right. Okay. You're right.
So as many fireworks as we saw tonight in this draft, with the running backs falling, with the tight ends being doubled up,
with the league page blowing up early.
Yeah, there's a lot of balance in this league. So this will be a compelling team, or I should say, a compelling league to watch this year. And that, ladies and gentlemen, will do it for our live broadcast tonight. Once again, we are cutting off the YouTube feed, but check out the FFPC High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour social media accounts. The FFPC message board will have the full draft board posted at some time tomorrow. I want to thank Darren Armani, Shane Hallam, Matt Schauf, all for calling in, especially Darren Armani, who basically co-hosted the first hour of the show, which was fantastic. While Dave was hard at work with all the techies getting that figured out, so I certainly appreciate that.
I learned Python in the hour.
Oh, there you go. That's really fast learning. So I want to thank those callers. I want to thank all the drafters tonight. Draft boards posted tomorrow. Once again, the final episode tomorrow of 2017, Pros versus Joes. It will be popping off an hour later, 10/9 Central. We will have it for 2 straight hours.
I'm checking the draft room right now.
Okay, excellent.
Sure it's right.
So tomorrow at 10 p.m., Pros, Jay Myers, Dynasty Football Warehouse, Jared Smola from Draft Sharks, Darren Armani, Fantasy Mojo, Tim McCullough, former overall champ, Roto Experts, Michael Nazarick, 2 third-place overall finishes from FF Mastermind. He'll be in here tomorrow. Ray Summerlin, the Scott Fishbowl winner from last year from Roto World. He will complete the Pros. And then Brad Kirkland, Kimra Schleicher, Steve Reeses, Bob McGilvray, Rich McClellan, Nolan Ortiz, all drafting tomorrow from the Joes side. So stay tuned for that tomorrow. And that's going to do it for our Pros versus Joes broadcast for 2017. As a reminder, go to myffpc.com. Main event, Football Guys Players Championship. 100% payout, draft expert double ups. Of course, best balls, classics, all going on there. Some high-stakes leagues still available at Planet Hollywood. Make sure that you are getting your reduced rate at Planet Hollywood this year when you are drafting live with us. Tomorrow, we will return at 10/9 Central. I want to thank everybody for putting up with technical difficulties tonight. Hopefully you enjoyed the broadcast. Your Tuesday officially
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com that was broadcast live and heard around the world. Eric and Dave will be back next week with more analysis, interviews, and advice from a guest much smarter than they are. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk with you again next week.
Him again, the sound that engine in is like a bird. You see fireworks and Corvette tires skirt the boulevard. I know how you work, I know just who you are. See, use a bitch, your almost probably switch inside your DNA.
Well, what a show. We had some issues. We got through it. I'm energized. Let's do another 2 hours right now. Let's go.
It seemed really short for me. I was only here for half of it.
That's actually longer than you're normally here.
Whatever, man.
Napa know-how.
A Napa guy knows more isn't always better, unless we're talking about full-size vans. These beasts do more than get you from A to B. They have so much space a man can live in it. With shag carpeting, waterbed, and a sweet lava lamp, these mobile abodes have all the comforts of home. With quality parts and plenty of Napa know-how, you can keep the original tiny house running longer, stronger. That's Napa know-how.
Napa know-how.